Chapter 359. Guilty? What crime? The few of them were confused. Li Shimin was even more confused. But after thinking for a bit, he understood a lot of things. This must be someone who went to complain. Very good. Father, this son doesn't know why father is so angry? Is it? Jeanne is living very well. Don't use those things to brush me off. Jeanne asks you, this locust plague, how are you going to solve it? Also, I heard that you want to turn the imperial court into a place for merchants, is that right? Don't quibble. Jeanne heard your conversation just now. What are you talking about? If you go on like this, won't this imperial court be laughed at? My imperial court of the Tang dynasty has become a place for merchants. What is this? This is a great shame. It turned out that the retired emperor was angry because of this matter. Li Shimin calmed his mind slightly and motioned for the few of them to get up. Then he sat opposite Li Shimin and said, Father, this matter is not what you think. Listen to me for the specifics. While talking, Li Shimin leaned close to Li Yuan's ear and started whispering. Following Li Shimin's whisper, Li Yuan's expression sometimes frowned and pondered. Sometimes it suddenly became clear. Sometimes, it was unusually angry. After a while, Li Yuan finally figured out the cause and effect of the matter. He glanced at the few of them and waved his hand faintly. You all withdraw first. Jeanne has something to say to the emperor. This official obeys the decree. The few of them hurried away. But everyone could see from the emperor and the retired emperor's eyes that it was not appropriate for the retired emperor to pursue this matter. The few of them also relaxed and hurried to carry out the matter that they discussed with the emperor before. But at this time, only Li Yuan and Li Shimin were left in the pavilion in the middle of the lake. The atmosphere was somewhat subtle. Li Yuan looked at the locust on the stone table with interest and said, You all are in a good mood. Can this kind of thing be eaten? Father, why don't you try it? Although this thing doesn't look good, the taste is still not bad. It's a good thing to go with wine. Is it the kind of wine that you gave Jeanne? Li Yuan smelled the lingering smell of alcohol in the air and asked. Li Shimin didn't say anything. Instead, he waved his hand and had someone bring in another set of bowls, chopsticks, wine set, and locusts. He personally poured a cup for Li Yuan. Only then did Li Yuan leisurely use his hand to pick up a locust. First, he removed all of the locust's legs and tentacles. Then he pulled out its wings and stomach. But after looking at it, he picked up a few more locusts and retreated, throwing them into his mouth and slowly chewing. As he chewed, Li Shimin glanced at the locusts doubtfully, then picked up a complete one. Only after Li Shimin personally took a bite did he put it into his mouth. In an instant, the crispness after frying, as well as the freshness and chewiness, made Li Yuan fall in love with this thing. Anyway, he had already eaten the bone-strengthening powder made from locusts, let alone a whole locusts. As for the locust egg, he had been consuming it all this time. Its effects were indeed quite good. While eating and drinking, Li Yuan raised his cup and clinked it with Li Shimin's. Have you thought it through? Do you want to start a war with Guanlong now? Yes. This son has thought it through. Sometimes, raising the butcher's knife high up can't truly kill the enemy. Instead, it will cause one's losses to be even greater. Therefore, this son feels that Guanlong controls the trade route, right? Then this emperor will compete with him in the trade route, and knock him down in the area he is best at. This way, not only will everyone know that this is our Li family's world, and it will also let everyone understand that in this world, there is only one person who has the final say. This son cooperates with those people in the imperial court. This is also a matter of last resort. It is the same as this. That cooperative is the prerequisite for this matter. Putting all the silver into our own pockets, they, in turn, are fighting for the world for our Lao Li family. This kind of matter, everyone will sharpen their heads to drill in. Who dares to retreat? Then, this emperor doesn't need to make a move. There will definitely be someone who will kill them. Li Shimin narrated his plan in detail to Li Yuan. He even narrated the matter of how to deal with the locusts and the bone-strengthening powder to Tubo and the others. Only then did Li Yuan let out a deep sigh. Although this has never happened before, in the current Tang dynasty, everything is recovering. This is indeed needed. Moreover, the plague of locusts has appeared at such a crucial time. If this disaster can really be turned into an opportunity, then this world will really be peaceful. Father is wise. Li Shimin flattered in a timely manner. However, Li Yuan sighed slightly and said, "Wise my ass. This is all your credit. This emperor will not ask about the matters of the imperial court. Today, Go Baoming went to find me, and I killed him. The imperial astronomer has to change to a more reliable person. Alright, you have to pay attention to the imperial college. During this period of time, my palace eunuchs often meet those people. They seem to be in contact with this person with the surname Go. You have to be careful." "Thank you for the reminder, father. This son has noticed the imperial college. They are the people of the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs. For the time being, this son is not prepared to have a conflict with them. Now that this matter of the bone-strengthening powder has appeared, this son wants to let Guanlong and the people of the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs have a dogfight. What do you think?" Li Yuan savored it carefully and then said, "Eunuch Rong, come, help this emperor back to the palace." While speaking, Li Yuan said faintly, "This emperor will no longer ask about this matter. However, when will you get a chef for these locusts?" "This son obeys your majesty." Chapter 360. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. However, these 3 days were torture for the envoys of Tubo and Tuyuhun, as well as all the civil and military officials in the imperial court. Basically, the gates of Zhongsun Wuji, Chang Yaojin, Feng Xianling, and Du Ruhui were all trampled on. Not for anything else, but just to ask what exactly this bone-strengthening powder was. As for why no one went to Wei Zheng's residence? Only someone with a screw loose would dare to go to Wei Zheng's residence and ask about the bone-strengthening powder? Were you courting death? Who was Wei Zheng? Once he knew that you were inquiring about something that even the emperor was unwilling to talk about, he would definitely send a memorial to the emperor and make you eat fried meat with a stick. These few days, Chang Yaojin and the others no longer looked pale. Instead, their faces were glowing. They ate less meat, and their appetite had also decreased. Usually, a residence would need at least 10 caddies of noodles. But now, after everyone in the residence had eaten the bone-strengthening powder, they only needed 5 caddies of noodles. Even Chang Yaojin, who was known as a big rice bucket, had reduced his appetite from a bowl the size of a washbasin to a bowl the size of a fist. He couldn't even finish a bowl. This shocked the guests. Everyone thought that Chang Yaojin must have gotten more bone-strengthening powder than everyone else. Chang Yaojin was also at his wits' end. He sent Chang Chumo to see the emperor. After getting permission, Chang Yaojin waved his hand. "You want the bone-strengthening powder, right? 100 strings of coins per caddy." But even so, he couldn't stand it anymore. Looking at the copper coins, silver, and gold ingots piled up in a room, he went crazy. He hurriedly entered the palace that night. But he didn't know until he entered the palace. Now that he entered the palace, he realized that things were serious. Other than Wei Zhang, all of their manners had encountered the same situation. Even if the entire family had been mobilized, even the locusts that had been secretly transported from the imperial city had not been enough. Those ministers were more black-hearted than the other. F***CK. There were many who asked for hundreds or even hundreds of thousands of dawn. Moreover, they would give you the money first. Regardless of whether you have it or not, they would give you the money first. Now, you have to give it to them even if you don't want to. Looking at the room full of money and the huge amount of orders, they didn't feel happy at all. Instead, they felt even more worried. How could this be good? Even though Chang Chumo, Wei Shuyu, and the others had been secretly collecting locusts these past few days, it was of no use. Hundreds of officials. Almost all of them were here. How could he deal with this? He looked at the people on the Vermilion Bird Bridge. The few of them looked at each other. From the time when they were showing off at the start, to now, all of them looked exhausted. Old Cheng, you also encountered such a thing? Do you intend to plan my ass? This matter is too big. I have to personally report it to the higher-ups. These bastards usually complain that they are poor, but this time, the money that has been deposited into the treasury is probably not even a fraction of what they have. Then, Lord Zhongsun, what do you think we should do? The 3 of them couldn't help but look at Zhongsun Wuji, who had been silent all this time. Zhongsun Wuji couldn't do anything. He pouted at the depths of the imperial palace. Let's go. Only His Majesty can make a decision on this matter. The few of them didn't report their arrival in advance, But the emperor seemed to know that they were coming and gave the order in advance. Therefore, they entered the imperial palace without any hindrance. As soon as they entered the imperial study, they saw the emperor bending over the table and reading a few memorials. "Greetings, your majesty." "Get up." Li Shimin put down the things in his hands and asked, "I've seen the list of people you've compiled in these 3 days. It's really beyond my expectations. What do you think if in the morning court tomorrow, this thing is made by locusts, how will they react?" After Li Shimin finished asking, his expression was strange. I think it's better to prepare a basin for them in advance and then give this delicious food to them first. If your majesty announces it at that time, I think it'll be even more perfect." Chang Yaojin's voice fell. Everyone looked at him with a strange expression, but this was enough. Because this was the best way to make people remember it. Moreover, the benefits of this locust would be remembered by them. "Good." Li Shimin got up and slapped the memorials presented by the few of them. He said, "What do you think about this matter?" "Your Majesty, old Cheng is right. I also agree with General Cheng's opinion. Last time, each of them made a lot of money from the locust's eggs, and this time, they even asked us to inquire about your Majesty. It's time to make them suffer." Zhang Sun Wuji, Fang Xianling, and Du Ruhui agreed with Chang Yaojin without even thinking about it. There was nothing else. It was time to make this group of pedantic people suffer a little. Only by suffering this could they be more clear about the value and significance of this thing. Then, would the rumors in Chang'an and all the rumors in the Tang dynasty still be a problem? When the time came, there would be no need for the emperor to say anything. Naturally, someone would handle this matter perfectly. Then in that case, I'll allow it. We'll wait for tomorrow's morning court. We congratulate your majesty. Chapter 361. Dong. 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 The morning bell at 5 o'clock sounded melodiously. But this time, when the morning bell sounded for the first time, all the officials waiting on the Vermilion Bird Bridge rushed out as if they couldn't wait any longer. They no longer yearned for the usual, neither dead nor alive. Even Wei Zhang and the others, who had been walking in front of the crowd, fell behind the crowd. This scene involuntarily left Wei Zhang dumbstruck. "Lord Feng, what is the meaning of this?" Wei Zhang looked doubtfully at Fang Xianling, who squinted his eyes and smiled while stroking his beard. Fang Xianling looked very energetic at this time. Even the booklets on his face were gone. His face was as rosy as a baby. "Ha ha ha. Prime Minister Wei, allow me to keep you guessing. You will know later. By the way, Prime Minister Wei, remember to stand far away later. Ha ha ha." Several people who knew the inside story laughed and patted Wei Zhang's shoulder one after another. Then, they walked forward slowly at a leisurely pace. Wei Zhang was even more confused. But who was he? In a flash, he figured out what was going on. He shook his head with a slight smile and no longer paid attention to the people who were scrambling to be left behind. He walked forward slowly. In the political announcement hall, the noise at this time could not be suppressed. It was like a vegetable market. All the officials and their close friends were in a circle, counting with their fingers. There were even faint quarrels and hearty laughter. But Wei Zhang was too lazy to care about all this. Zhang Sun Wuji, who was in charge of the criminal law, just smiled and looked at the people who were quarreling more and more. If it was in the past, they would have been dragged out and beaten with a board. But this time, they didn't care. Even His Majesty was late today. It wasn't until the noise turned into loud roars that little Gizi, with a dark face, took a copper gong and fiercely struck it in front of the dragon throne. Bang bang bang. Silence. Little Gizi didn't know how many times he shouted at the top of his voice before the crowd slowly quieted down. "This is the political announcement hall. What crime do you all deserve for quarreling like this?" Little Gizi also exploded. After fiercely scolding the crowd, he then said fiercely, "The emperor is angry. After the court, each of you shall go to the Ministry of Justice to receive your 10 feet. If anyone doesn't go, Zhang Sun Wuji, you have full authority to directly go to this person's residence and serve him." "As you command," Zhang Sun Wuji replied with a smile. At this moment, everyone looked at little Gizi with pale faces. Boom! Little Gizi threw the copper gong away and shouted angrily, "What are you all standing there for? His Majesty is here. Kneel and welcome him." This time, He didn't greet him respectfully. Instead, he knelt. Obviously, everyone's heart couldn't help but jump. Was the emperor really angry? Only then did everyone kneel down in fear and shout, "Your subjects respectfully welcome your majesty for 10,000 years." Only then did Li Shimin slowly walk out of the back hall with his hands clasped behind his back. However, as soon as he came out, Li Shimin acted as if he didn't know. He looked at the crowd in surprise and said, "Dear subjects, what are you doing? Quickly get up." "Thank you, your majesty." "Little Geezy, cancel the flogging." "You too. Why did you make such a big fuss over such a small matter?" Li Shimin stepped on the stairway to heaven and sat on the dragon throne. He said again, "By the way, why were you all so noisy just now? Tell me and let me be happy." "Prime Minister Wei, tell me." "Your Majesty." Wei Zhang stepped forward and held the white jade medallion. He said, "Just now the officials were discussing the bone-strengthening powder business." "What?" Li Shimin frowned slightly. "This is the political announcement hall. Why are they discussing this matter in the morning court? What is the meaning of this? And with all the officials together? What kind of scandal is this? If people know about this, won't they sneer at the Tang dynasty and laugh at me for not being able to govern the country?" "Minister of Rights." Li Shimin looked slightly displeased and waved his hand. In an instant, an old official stepped forward, trembling with fear. "Yes, your majesty." "Wait. Cooperate with Lord Zhang's son and record the list of those who participated in the commotion just now. Everyone go back and copy the official system. I want to look at them one by one. The flogging will be waived." Hearing this, everyone breathed a deep sigh of relief. Some even quietly wiped the cold sweat on their foreheads. They knelt down again and said, "Thank you, your majesty." Okay. Li Shimin's mood, was called elated. This was the style of a ruler of a country. In fact, he had arrived earlier, but he didn't come out. He was waiting. Just now, he bet that Wei Zhang and the others wouldn't stop him. Then, he asked little Geezy to put on a show. That was how he severely suppressed these arrogant guys. He claimed to be the successor of Confucius and Mencius. He cared about it all day long. But what was he doing now? At this time, the civil officials also felt guilty. No one dared to ask about the bone-strengthening powder. No one even mentioned the bad news caused by the locust plague. After dealing with some things as usual, the court meeting was basically over. Li Shimin waved his hand and said, "I see that you all look very ruddy. Good. This is the appearance that a subject of my great Tang should have. Just like before, each and every one of you had an emaciated complexion. Those who didn't know would have thought that we treated you unfairly. Tell me, why is that? Why do you all look so ruddy? Did you get some treasure?" The officials heard this. They couldn't help but mutter in their hearts. "Isn't this the bone-strengthening powder given by your majesty?" But now, everyone was smart and didn't dare to speak out. But this silence didn't last long. It was unknown which unlucky bastard was kicked in the butt, causing him to lie on the ground. The white jade tablet in his hand fell to the ground with a click. Li Shimin looked at it and was happy. Surveillance of the Imperial College. "Master Cui, tell me about it." Chapter 362. Cui Fengjun was miserable. He quietly turned around to take a look, but he didn't see who kicked him. But now the emperor had spoken. He could only roar fiercely in his heart, "Damn it, if Lao Tzu finds out who kicked Lao Tzu will kill you." But thinking about it was just thinking. Now was not the time to complain. He hurriedly said, "In reply to your majesty, this is the effect of the bone-strengthening powder that your majesty bestowed to us. When we went to visit General Cheng yesterday, we discovered that General Cheng was also using this item. Previously, everyone knew that General Cheng's appetite was 10 times that of us. But yesterday, we discovered that General Cheng had actually abandoned the basin and switched to a fist-sized bowl. It's the same for us officials. Previously, we were wondering if there was something wrong with our bodies. However, after seeing General Cheng and visiting some other officials here, we realized that all the officials who ate the bone-strengthening powder bestowed by His Majesty were the same. And we feel that although our appetite is smaller, we have more strength than before. In the past, we couldn't even lift a bucket of water, but now, we can lift it with one hand effortlessly. We are already 53 years old this year. Oh. Li Shimin was amused. You are also the same? We thank your majesty for your kindness. No one dared to say anything else and hurriedly bowed. Although Cheng Yaojin's expression was a little strange, he still straightened his back and said, "This is indeed the effect of your majesty's bone-strengthening powder. In my early years, this old official had been on the battlefield all year round. When I was old, my waist and legs would hurt badly at night, whether it was sunny or rainy. But ever since I ate the bone-strengthening powder, my waist and legs have been better. Moreover, when I sleep at night, it's like I'm 10 years younger." Ha ha ha. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. Li Shimin also laughed when he heard that. Good, good, good. It seems that all of you used the bone-strengthening powder well. Does anyone feel anything strange? Li Shimin took the opportunity to ask. However, no one objected. Li Shimin nodded. He waved his hand and said, "In that case, I will tell you about the bone-strengthening powder today. I hope you can work with me to better govern the Tang dynasty." As you command. Everyone, please follow me for breakfast. We'll talk about the rest later. While speaking, Li Shimin and Little Gizi looked at each other. After receiving a definite reply, Li Shimin strode out of the political announcement hall. All the ministers were impatient as they followed Li Shimin out of the political announcement hall. At an unknown time, the huge square between the political announcement hall and the Hanyuan Hall had long been filled with densely packed tables and chairs. These tables were all covered with red silk cloth. On top of the red cloth, there was only a plate covered with red cloth. There was also a wine cup, a pair of chopsticks, and a bowl of steaming bone-strengthening powder. That was all. However, the strange thing was that there was a brown jar next to each table. There were also palace maids waiting on the jars. Everyone looked at the bone-strengthening powder as if they were looking at the elixir of immortality. How could they notice such details? Not to mention other things, these days, they finally let those resentful women at home experience the power. How could this not make them crazy? Come, come, come. Everyone, take your seats. Thank you, Your Majesty. After everyone bowed to Li Shimin again, they took their seats according to the order of the official rank. At this time, in front of Li Shimin, a eunuch hurriedly placed the same things as everyone else, but the brown jar was missing. Li Shimin took his seat. Only then did everyone sit down. Come, come, come. Everyone, you must be wondering what's under the red cloth? Right. Smell it. What do you think of this fragrance? Zhen will tell you now. This is the raw material used to make this bone-strengthening powder. It has the same effect as the locust eggs. Zhan and retired emperor have been eating it during this period of time. It's a rare product that goes well with wine. Come, follow Zhan to lift the red cloth. The effect was achieved. The officials had been waiting impatiently for a long time. That enticing fragrance, as well as the rich smell of pepper and oil mixed together, had already made everyone salivate. However, after lifting the red cloth, everyone was dumbfounded. Wasn't this the locust? This was the raw material used to make the bone-strengthening powder? Finally, everyone understood. Everyone resisted the urge to retch. Their faces were pale as they looked at the bowl of bone-strengthening powder emitting an enticing fragrance. This was the bone-strengthening powder? Everyone only felt that the sky and earth were spinning. Waves of nausea overturned in their stomach. Everyone couldn't help but quietly look over. On the table, the emperor was eating with relish. Wei Zhang and the others were also sitting on the bench eating and drinking. Even that Cheng Yaojin seemed like he hadn't eaten before. He stuffed big handfuls into his mouth and kept urging the palace maid to give him another bowl. Was it really that delicious? But now, the emperor had eaten it. How could they not eat it? Everyone resisted the churning in their hearts. They picked up a locust leg and stuffed it into their mouths. They closed their eyes and swallowed it. And at this moment, Li Shimin glanced at everyone and raised his cup. Come, come, come. Everyone, drink this cup of wine. Chapter 363. What could they say? The emperor had already raised his cup. They could only hurriedly get up and drink with the emperor. But in the next moment, their expressions changed. Looking at the little wine left in the cup and then at the jade pot, they couldn't help but show a look of horror. They drank some of this wine every day, and those who could hold their liquor would usually drink a large jar every day. But this wine, it was just a small cup, but it was like swallowing a ball of fire. The scorching temperature went down the throat and then into the stomach. This wine. My God, what wine is this? Is this wine a tribute from Zhenla? Isn't it too strong? But this wine is so addictive. Ha ha ha. When Li Shimin heard the cries of alarm among the ministers below, he laughed aloud and said, "Gentlemen, what do you think? What do you think of this wine?" Of course, this wine was Zhang Feng's, but Li Shimin had learned to be shrewd. And anyone who had been to the tavern a few times would be shrewd enough to know that this wine had the so-called degree. And these wines were ordered by Li Shimin to the tavern last night by Wei Shuyu. 10 jars of low-degree wine and 10 jars of 72-degree wine. Of course, Li Shimin, Wei Zhang, and the others drank the lowest degree wine, but the rest of the people, that would definitely be a 72-proof wine. This was Li Shimin's trap. Li Shimin didn't dare to ask Zhang Feng for the wine. Even if he asked, Zhang Feng wouldn't give it to him. When Li Shimin's voice fell, those old drunkards couldn't sit still. "Your Majesty, is this wine a tribute from Zhenla?" "Impossible, Your Majesty. I think this wine is sweet and spicy. Although it feels like a knife or fire when it goes down the throat, it retains the essence of the grain." "Is this wine brewed from wheat?" "But wheat doesn't exist in the western regions. This is..." "Stop guessing." Li Shimin waved his hand. He glanced at Zhang Sun Wuji indifferently. Immediately, Zhang Sun Wuji stood up and said, "This wine was brewed by an expert from the Great Tang. However, due to the geography and environment of the mountain that the expert resided in, there is not much of this wine, only 10 jars a year. Today, the Emperor has reluctantly taken out these 10 jars of wine as a reward for all of you to drink to your heart's content. What are all of you waiting for? Why aren't you thanking him?" "What? This wine is brewed by an expert? Moreover, there were only 10 jars? In other words, His Majesty wanted to use this fine wine as well." Everyone's eyes couldn't help but burst into bursts of scorching light. Let's not talk about the taste of the locusts. If the Emperor could eat them, then the taste would definitely not be that bad. Moreover, he had already eaten the locust's eggs. What was there to be afraid of? However, if everyone didn't think too much and hurriedly knelt on the ground to express their gratitude. Then, they hurriedly got up and re-examined the yellow locusts on the plate. Then, some people imitated Wei Zhang and the others. They carefully picked up a piece and threw it into their mouths with their eyes closed. However, just like all the people who were eating this for the first time, everyone's expressions changed when they saw the latecomers eat it. As long as they ate the first bite, basically no one could resist the charm of this thing. One bite of the locusts, one sip of the wine. This taste. Even if they were asked to resign now, they would be served with these things every day. They wouldn't exchange it even if they were given immortals. The key was that after eating this thing for 3 days, they obviously felt refreshed. Although their appetite had decreased, everyone was more energetic. Their waists were no longer sore and their legs were no longer painful. Even their bodies and bones were more powerful. What was this? This was something that couldn't be exchanged with any amount of money. But now, His Majesty actually bestowed such a miraculous elixir to me? Was the plague of locusts really not a punishment from heaven, but a sweet dew from heaven? Everyone was confused. Even more people were excited. How many good things had that bastard wasted in the past few hundred years? If such a sacred thing could be developed in their hands, it would definitely be immortalized for generations to come. The more they thought about it, the more excited they became. In the end, those Confucian officials didn't even have the elegance of the past. Everyone seemed to have gone crazy. They grabbed a handful of locusts and stuffed them into their mouths. Then, they grabbed the wine pot with the other hand and poured it into their mouths. It was such a crazy scene. Even the palace maids were dumbfounded. Were they bewitched? Were all the officials bewitched? Li Shimin smiled. Seeing this crazy scene, Wei Zhang and the others couldn't help but laugh. This was the effect he wanted. Once this effect was shown, all the rumors in Chang'an City and even in the Tang dynasty would be no problem. And now, Li Shimin didn't need to say anything. With the current situation, what else did he need to say? Everyone here was a wily old fox. They were very clear when it came to calculating. They had all tasted the benefits of the bone-strengthening powder. Once they accepted the locusts, everything would be settled. After all, compared to him, these officials were shrewder when it came to doing business. Thinking of this, Li Shimin stood up, raised his wine cup, and said, "Everyone, come on. Let's drink to the prosperity of the Tang dynasty." How could they dare to be rash? They hurriedly raised their wine cups respectfully and shouted excitedly, "May the prosperity of the Tang dynasty last forever." Chapter 364. Compared to Li Shimin's joy. Now Zhang Feng could be said to be crazy. In the yard. At this time, the yard was full of shiny black iron parts. If there was a modern person, after seeing these things, he would be shocked. Because each of these parts was a part of a bicycle. And Zhang Feng was squatting on the ground, fiddling with something like a bicycle chain. The chain was not as precise as it was in his previous life. The craftsmen of today did not have the ability to do so, but Zhang Feng had put in a lot of effort to make the gears of the tricycle into a linkage, and the link between the two gears was replaced by a chain like a chain. For this kind of thing, he quarreled with the old blacksmith in the south of Chang'an City for a full hour before finally settling this matter. At this time, Zhang Feng was using molten iron to fasten the chain to the gaps one by one. He heated it with fire and then poured molten iron on it. In this way, this thing could be made into a hole. After it solidified, he heated it up and fixed it in one direction with a hammer. In this way, the whole chain was formed. "Fengzi, are you in?" "Fengzi?" Just as Zhang Feng was preparing to assemble the tricycle in a hurry, the old scholar's voice suddenly came from outside the door. Zhang Feng had to quickly wet everything and cover him with the prepared linen cloth. Then he hurried to the front hall and opened the door of the tavern. He saw the old scholar wrapped in a headscarf, only a pair of eyes on his head. Zhang Feng was overjoyed when he saw this outfit. "I say, old Xiaocai, did you become a thief? Get out!" The old scholar glared at Zhang Feng angrily. After entering the room, he took off all the clothes on his body and looked at Zhang Feng's tavern with curiosity. He asked, "Why didn't I see a fly when I entered the tavern, let alone a locust? What did you use?" "Here that, made with mugwort and realgar beef tendons." Zhang Feng pointed at the corner of the wall. The old scholar couldn't help but feel curious. "This thing can drive away locusts?" "Of course. If you don't believe me, you'll know when the time comes. Take some with you when you leave. I guarantee that you won't see a single locust in your courtyard." "All right, you're here for?" Zhang Feng asked curiously. "It's nothing. I just don't have any alcohol to drink." The old elementary scholar didn't put on any pretense and said directly. Hearing this, Zhang Feng didn't waste any time. He took out a jar of good wine from the counter and went to the kitchen to prepare a bowl of bone-strengthening powder and a side dish. He originally wanted to serve the fried locusts, but after thinking about it, he was afraid that the old scholar would immediately die when he saw that thing, so he hesitated for a few seconds. In the end, he gave up on acting cool. If he died, he would be in big trouble. Moreover, when the academy opened, he, the old elementary scholar, would be the main force. "Here, old Xiaocai, this is good stuff. It's called the bone-strengthening powder. You've come at the right time. I was wondering when I should send it to you." While they were talking, Zhang Feng put a big bowl of bone-strengthening powder in front of the old elementary scholar. The old elementary scholar put down the bowl and sniffed, looking at the paste in the bowl with a face full of surprise. "This is bone-strengthening powder. As the name suggests, eating it can strengthen the bones and the body." Hearing this, the old elementary scholar held the bowl with both hands. Ignoring the fact that it was scalding his mouth, he took a deep breath and savored the taste in his mouth. Slowly, he closed his eyes and let out a moan of pleasure. "Wonderful! What is this made of? How can it be so delicious?" "This, old elementary scholar, let me keep you in suspense for a while. I'll tell you later." Zhang Feng smiled and filled the old elementary scholar's cup. He said, "I know that you don't come to the Three Treasures Palace for no reason. Just tell me, have you taken a fancy to a young wife?" "Nonsense. How can the old man be a bastard like you?" The old elementary scholar couldn't take it anymore. He glared at Zhang Feng. Then he said slowly, "Isn't the Dragon Boat Festival just over? Originally, there was going to be a lantern festival this year, but because of these damn locusts, it was cancelled. However, The poetry festival is still going on.
I think with your ability, and for the sake of the academy in the future, you should still go for... No.
Without waiting for the old scholar to finish his words, Zhang Feng rolled his eyes and rejected him. Who was he? He was just a plagiarist. How could he compete with those awesome people? Although poetry was not very popular in the early Tang dynasty, it didn't mean that it didn't exist. Take banknotes for example. He had only read in the records of the Grand Historian that banknotes were popular during the Song dynasty. But who would have thought that banknotes were already in existence in the Tang dynasty?
Although the scale was not very large and there were very few users, at the very least, this thing had evolved from the Tang dynasty.
And that was Li Bai. Although he hadn't been born yet, there were still some awesome people at this time. If he went against them at this time, wouldn't he be courting death? Therefore, Zhang Feng decisively refused. Besides, when the academy was opened, who the hell said that he would teach everyone? He didn't want to go against the Imperial College and the Imperial Court at this time. What he taught was basically incompatible with the things in this world. He just wanted to keep a low profile. He didn't want those literary masters, great scholars, and civil officials in the Imperial Court to know his name. Once they knew. Haha. I wish you good luck in your next life. Chapter 365. But how could the old scholar listen to him? He threw something at him. I know you don't want to go. But do you know that your concubine will be going this time? Furthermore, she's the main character. Don't you want to go and support your concubine? Do you want people to say that you're a coward? You should know that you're the one who broke Miss Jingshu's vow and that song. Every year, during the Dragon Boat Festival and Mid-Autumn Festival, Jingshu would perform this song at the Yen Lai restaurant, which is the poetry festival held by the royal family. Now that you've broken this song, you should consider the consequences yourself. Do you want people to point at you from behind, or do you want to use your talents to make them completely give up on you? You should consider it. While talking, the old elementary scholar happily drank the bone-strengthening powder, ate the side dishes, and drank the wine. He no longer paid any attention to Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng's face was very ugly now. He wanted to hit someone. He wanted to hit Chen Tiniu. If he could beat him. This bastard, if it weren't for him, how could I have a concubine out of nowhere? Although Jingshu was indeed very beautiful, he only wanted to do his own things and prepare for entering the imperial court in the future. At this time, he had to marry and take in a concubine. How could he live well? He didn't dare to go through the hardships of his previous life again. In his previous life, he listened to other people's nonsense and got married first, then started his career. Well, he didn't get to meet the campus belle, but he got to meet a pretty good girl and got married in a daze. He originally thought that after marriage would be the same as before. But, damn it, he couldn't drink wine. He couldn't play games. He even messed up the postgraduate entrance examination. From time to time he had to hand in all the money, and he had to take care of the oil, salt, sauce, vinegar and tea. This marriage had ruined his studies. In the end, he even got a divorce. He didn't want to go through such a terrible thing again. But this Jingshu, he could not go and meet her. After all, she was now his nominal concubine, and the whole city knew about it. If he flinched at this time, given the pride of women in Chang'an, he would definitely jump into the river or hang himself. This mess. Things that had already been suppressed might be stirred up again. At that time, he would be in for a lot of fun. Moreover, why did this Jingshu look so similar to the campus belle that he had a crush on in his previous life? F***CK. Alright, I'll go, alright? Zhang Feng compromised. Only then did the old scholar smile happily. That's right. A man should have his own responsibilities. A man who doesn't even care about his own woman is not fit to be called a man. Zhang Feng pursed his lips. He ignored the old scholar. In any case, whatever the other party said, he would just do as he was told. After 3 rounds of wine, the old scholar finally realized what was going on. He stood up unsteadily and picked out 2 large jugs of wine from the counter. Fengzi, do you have any more of this? It tastes really good. I'll bring some back to try. All right, I've already prepared it for you. While speaking, Zhang Feng took out an oiled paper bag containing 3 caddies of wine from the counter. He said, Old scholar, although this stuff is good, you can't eat too much of it. Although it's good for tonics, Eating too much of it will also kill you. At most, 2 big bowls a day. Don't eat too much, it's best to eat it with corn, do you hear me? Alright, by the way, you must be on time for the poetry gathering tomorrow night. Alright. Zhang Feng took out a package of mugwort from the corner of the door and stuffed it into the old scholar's arms. Only then did the old scholar stagger away. Zhang Feng rubbed his forehead and then lay down on the recliner, worrying. He could understand everything clearly, but he really wasn't prepared for this blind date and this concubine who appeared out of nowhere. Although he did have a good impression of this Jing Shu, they had only met once and spoken twice. Was this love? Not really. At most, it was a gamble. Besides, Jing Shu had too many troubles behind her. If he didn't handle it well, he would be in endless trouble at any moment. The best way was to get an official position. At that time, who would dare to oppose him? But Jing Shu wasn't a problem. The biggest problem was the marriage of the Zhang family. The old scholar didn't mention it at all, as if he had long forgotten about it. However, he knew that it was still there. And this was the biggest problem. According to the customs of the Tang dynasty, marriage was a troublesome matter. Not only was it cumbersome, but a woman from a rich family, especially one with a little bit of talent, was not easy to fool. If you said that she was stupid or didn't understand these things, that would be fine. But from the letter that Chuier brought to him last time, he only saw shrewdness. Moreover, Zhang Feng didn't dare to try the fear of marriage at this time. Everything had to be delayed. Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel that whether it was modern or ancient times, this man. It was too difficult. Chapter 366. In the political announcement hall. Li Shimin was sitting still. It was the same for all the ministers. Everyone's backs were ramrod straight. Even the generals were wearing armor that they hadn't worn for a long time. They were even allowed to bring their weapons to the palace. What kind of occasion was this? This was a time to show off the might of the Tang dynasty. To put it bluntly, it was a time to show off. Li Shimin sat on the dragon throne with a dignified expression. When the Jinwu guards outside the hall signaled the arrival of the envoys from Tubo and Tuyuhun, Li Shimin waved his hand and said, "Summon the envoys from Tubo and Tuyuhun to the hall." The emperor has decreed that the envoys from Tubo and Tuyuhun should be summoned to the hall. The emperor has decreed that the envoys from Tubo and Tuyuhun should be summoned to the emperor. Summon? Following the 3 shouts of the Jinwu guards, 2 people wearing beast skin skirts with all kinds of beads hanging from their bodies and a string of heaven beads in their hands respectfully entered the political announcement hall. This time, Tubo didn't send Solons, but it seemed that Tubo had sent someone extraordinary. This person had a big belly and a round waist. He wasn't tall, but he had a red brandy nose. He squinted his eyes and observed the civil and military officials from time to time, but he didn't have a trace of satisfaction. On the other hand, the envoys from Tuyuhun. Although they were wearing the same clothes as the envoys from Tubo, they were thin and tall like bamboo. When they saw the weapons that Chang Yaojin and the others were wearing, they couldn't help but have a dignified expression. Even the mustache on the corner of their mouths seemed to be trembling. Because, while he was looking at the generals, all of them were displaying their most awe-inspiring side. Everyone's hands were on the hilts of their swords. Chang Yaojin was even holding the broad axe in his arms and gently tapping the blade of the axe. Every military general's eyes were like knives as they stared at the 2 of them. As for the person at the top of the hall, that is, Li Shimin, dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe, he didn't even dare to look at him. "Halt, intruder!" When the 2 of them were about to overtake Wei Zhang, who was sitting at the head of the table, little Gizi shouted coldly. Only then did the 2 of them stop and hurriedly kneel on the ground. Tubo's envoy Badargan pays respect to your majesty, King of Tang. Tuyuhun envoy Ao Raj pays respect to your majesty, King of Tang. Rise! Li Shimin waved his sleeve majestically. Then he said, "Give him a seat." A moment later, a little eunuch carried 2 praying mats and placed them beside the 2 of them. At this time, the 2 of them thanked Li Shimin before sitting down. Li Shimin had been observing the 2 of them from the moment they entered the door. From their eyes and expressions, he could see that the role this time was definitely not as simple as the previous time. Although Ao Raj seemed to be trembling with fear, but who was Li Shimin? From the other party's indifferent eyes, he could see that he was pretending. These 2 people were not easy to deal with.
I wonder why the two of you came from afar?
Replying to your majesty.
Badargan cupped his fists and stood up. This time, we came to the Tang dynasty to ask for help.
As far as I know, hasn't your tubo drought stopped? What are you here to ask for?
Badargan's eyes flashed. Replying to your majesty, you might not know, but 15 days ago, a locust plague broke out in my tubo and was out of control.
The crops and seedlings that had just been saved became food for the locusts.
Therefore, I, Wang Songzonbu, specially ordered this one to come and ask for your majesty's help. But before this one came to the Tang dynasty, I thought that since the Tang dynasty could solve the drought in Longyu province, they would also be able to solve this locust plague.
But this one...
Badargan didn't finish his words, but it made all the officials angry. Without waiting for them to speak, Li Shimin lightly waved his hand and stopped them. He smiled and asked, "Then what is your purpose of coming here?"
Originally, when this one came to the Tang dynasty, this one felt that this locust plague was a punishment from the heavens. Even the strong Tang dynasty couldn't compete with it. That also means that this locust plague is really undefeatable. Therefore, this one originally wanted to ask for help from the Tang dynasty to buy some food.
Humph!
Preposterous! Presumptuous! In an instant, some officials were angry.
However, Badargan ignored the crowd and sighed. But 3 days ago, this one was in the Honglu temple and suddenly found that the locusts that were flying all over the sky in the entire imperial city of the Tang dynasty had disappeared.
And it happened overnight.
This matter touched this one, so this one prayed to the heavens in the Honglu temple. Finally, I learned that it was His Majesty's courage and wisdom that made that heavenly punishment avoid the imperial city. Therefore, this one now wants to ask His Majesty the Tang Emperors to save all the people of Tubo. I think that the benevolent His Majesty the Tang Emperor would not want to see the suffering of his allies. Badargan's words were very smooth. He didn't hide his thoughts and directly said them.
Then, he flattered Li Shimin. This move was vicious. Too vicious. This was flattery. Li Shimin smiled faintly.
He looked at Ao Raj and asked, "Then envoy from Tuyuhun, what is your purpose?"
Chapter 367.
Your Majesty, the purpose of my visit is the same as Envoy Badargan's.
Our 3 countries have always helped and supported each other to achieve today's prosperity. My king also hopes to establish a century-old brotherhood with your Majesty.
Sure enough.
Neither of them is easy to deal with.
Li Shimin could not help but sigh in his heart.
Brotherhood and flattery. It's going to be difficult to deal with this time.
Li Shimin involuntarily glanced at the group of civil officials.
Do you have any good ideas?
Minister of Agriculture, do you have any good ideas?
Tell me. Li Shimin stopped talking after he finished speaking.
The Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Agriculture hurriedly got up and bowed. Then they looked at the two and said, "Gentlemen, although the Tang dynasty does have a way to control the locust plague, we have spent a lot of money and resources. But as all of you can see, we've expended a great deal of manpower, resources, and wealth for this matter. Moreover, my Great Tang doesn't have much food, and all of you know that my Great Tang has only just been pacified. All of us are still hungry, so I feel that we should discuss this matter later."
Minister.
Badargan cupped his fists lightly. He saw that Li Shimin closed his eyes slightly, as if he did not intend to do anything about it.
He was a little angry.
He said, "As far as I know, now the warehouse of Chong'an City is almost full of grain. Our 2 countries are diplomatic, so I hope Minister can lend a helping hand to help our friends."
Minister, Envoy Badargan is right.
As far as I know, this locust plague is a comprehensive outbreak. If we don't control it from the source, once the locust plague breaks out, all of us will suffer losses. There is a saying in the Tang dynasty, when the nest is overturned, there are no eggs intact. I hope your Majesty will think about it carefully. This? The Minister of Agriculture slightly frowned. He glanced at the Minister of Agriculture beside him and asked, "Mr. Zhang, how's the harvest of all the farmlands in the Tang dynasty this year?" The Minister of Agriculture frowned and thought for a while before saying, "Minister, this year, the drought in the north and the floods in the south have caused the Tang dynasty's harvest to be negative." The Minister of Agriculture shrugged and said awkwardly, "Dear envoys, as you can see, it's not that the Tang dynasty doesn't want to help. It's just that the Tang dynasty doesn't have enough food."
I don't think so.
Previously, the Tang dynasty exchanged a huge amount of food from Tubo and Tuyuhun for the water we'll use to treat the drought. Are you not willing to take out a little to help us now? Bardal was enraged. Was he trying to deny it after eating his fill? His heart was bleeding at the thought of so much food flowing into the pockets of the Tang dynasty. Now, Tubo was on the brink of death. In the past, there were still some weeds, wild vegetables, and leaves to eat. But now, the locust plague broke out, and more than half of the cattle and sheep starved to death. The number of people starved to death was also increasing day by day. If this situation was delayed, wouldn't the country be destroyed? How could the Tang dynasty not know this? But what did he mean now? Was he waiting to see the destruction of the country? Sir Envoy. All right, Sir Envoy Badargan, please calm down. At the right moment, Zhang Sun Wuji stood up with a smile and said slowly, "We are also aware of your situation. However, you have also seen the locust plague. This is a full-scale outbreak, and the Tang dynasty is also suffering from a locust plague at this time. Although the source of the locust plague is in Tubo and Tuyuhun, let's not talk about it now. Let's talk about this matter. You also know that once the plague of locusts breaks out, everyone will starve, and my great Tang is no exception. How about this? I have a suggestion. Will the two of you listen to it? Oh, dear envoy, what good idea do you have? Quickly tell it to me." Li Shimin hit the nail on the head, leaving the two of them no chance to refute. Zhang Sun Wuji bowed and thanked Li Shimin. Then he said, "Your Majesty, I have been thinking about this when the two of you arrived in Chang'an. It was not until now that I have a clue. Here is my idea. Now that the Tang dynasty and Tubo and Tuyuhun are short of food, the locust plague has broken out at the same time. This is a difficult problem. If we don't save them, the world will say that your Majesty is not merciful. But if we save them, won't the Tang dynasty starve?" Li Shimin frowned and pretended to be troubled. "What do you mean? So I think we should help now. But it must not be paid. Otherwise, the people of the Tang dynasty will not accept it. So I boldly came up with a countermeasure. According to my understanding, most of the livestock in Tubo and Tuyuhun, even chickens, ducks, pigs, and so on have starved to death. If we help at this time, as long as they give us pigs, cows, sheep, chickens, ducks and other livestock, especially cows, sheep, chickens, ducks and horses, then the people of the Tang dynasty will be convinced. Your Majesty, what do you think?" "What? This? Your Excellency, don't you think you are going too far by doing this?" But before the two of them could finish, the ministers in the political announcement hall praised in unison. "What do you mean by going too far? This is the fairest trade." "Yes. Are you saving people or what? I think Lord Zhongxuan's plan is wonderful. We think this plan is brilliant. Your Majesty, we think this plan is the only way to solve the locust plague in the three countries." Chapter 368. Ao Raj and Bardal became anxious. What is the meaning of this? Isn't this a discussion? You don't even want our opinion? It's decided just like that? When did I agree to exchange our cattle, sheep, and horses for food? If that's the case, when the plague of locusts is over, what will be left of our country? Without a horse, without a single cow, won't we still have to wait for death? At this moment, Li Shimin listened to everyone's words and kept nodding. I also feel that this method is the best. It can make the people of my Tang dynasty accept wholeheartedly, and it can also end this plague of locusts in the shortest time possible. Gentlemen, what do you think of this plan? If it's possible, I will now issue a decree that tomorrow, there will be 30,000 dan of grain set off from Longyu Road and enter your two countries. Wait, Your Majesty, this matter still needs to be discussed. Bardal became anxious. He hurriedly stopped them and said to Ao Raj, "This method is not appropriate. If so, although it can solve the food problem, the root of the plague of locusts is still unsolved. Moreover, once this matter is over, all the livestock in my country will be gone. This." Li Shimin was slightly unhappy. "Then what do you mean? How should we stop the mouths of the people of the Tang dynasty?" This matter, Zhang Sun Wuji, Wei Zhang, and all the officials, listened to the decree. Today, in this political announcement palace, you all will discuss this matter. I will wait for your final decision in the imperial study. After saying that, Li Shimin left with a frosty expression. Farewell, Your Majesty. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. His Majesty must be angry. However, Li Shimin immediately smiled the moment he entered the back hall. At this moment, the two of them had already entered the trap. As for the result, he didn't need to see it anymore. In the political announcement palace, Bardal and Ao Raj were stunned. What did the Tang emperors mean? He left just like that? This, however, when they recalled that His Majesty had said that the matter would be settled today, they didn't think too much about it. This was what they wanted. The fact that the two of them could come to the Tang dynasty this time meant that they were the best negotiators in their country. As for how far the discussion could go, the fact that His Majesty didn't directly refuse meant that there was still room for discussion. Bardergan could not help but cry out in grief. My lords, this plague of locusts is no small matter.
Look outside Chang'an City. Are you willing to see what happened to me, Tubo, as an example? I hope you can.
Lord Envoy.
Let's not rush. Since His Majesty said that we should discuss this matter slowly, why don't we discuss it slowly? Let me comb it for you. Zhang Sun Wuji patted Badargan's shoulder and said, I know how you feel, and the Tang dynasty doesn't want those bastards of yours. We just want the people of the Tang dynasty to rest assured and not worry. If that's the case, we'll pay for it. How about we pay for it?
Ao Raj narrowed his eyes and said,
Lord Envoy, what you said is wrong. At this time, as soon as he spoke, the civil officials couldn't sit still anymore. Look at the Tang dynasty and your Tubo and Tuyuhun. How can we ask for your money? Even when we helped you deal with the drought, we didn't ask for any money, right? So this time, talking about money will hurt feelings. And in the current situation, money is useless. Think about it, everyone is short of food, right? Moreover, we're helping you raise your livestock. After this year, when spring comes next year, we'll return your cattle, sheep, pigs, chickens, and ducks intact. Isn't that better? The civil officials spoke one after another. At this time, Bardergan also exploded. He pointed at a white-bearded old official in front of him and shouted, Like hell I'll believe you. You're a bad old man. Do you think I don't know that we'll return these livestock once they're in your hands? The old man wasn't angry or angry. Instead, he patiently explained, Lord Envoy, you're thinking too much. My Tang dynasty has vast land and abundant resources. Your Tuyuhun is just a small place. Those few horses, cows, and sheep aren't even enough for my Long Yu Dao's output. Do you think my Tang dynasty will care about them? His Majesty has said that this is to reassure the people. Think about it. The food now is life-saving. Are you taking the food back for people to eat? For the people to eat? Or for these animals to eat? And now the locusts have eaten up everywhere. What are you going to feed them? Bardergan seriously suspected that these people were cursing. But he didn't have any evidence. But he was clear about this. Even if there were 1,000 cows, 10,000 horses, 10,000 sheep, and 10,000 pigs in Tubo, those chickens and ducks were not included. In a year, 500 cows and 3,000 horses would give birth to cubs. Who would they belong to? When the time came, they would desperately squeeze these livestock to produce livestock. Even if they sent them back next year, they would only be old, weak, sick, and disabled. Wouldn't this be a year of free labor for the Tang dynasty? Were they stupid? Moreover, the matter of how to control the locust plague hadn't been mentioned yet. Were they really so confident that they could do it? Thinking of this, Bardergan suddenly shouted, No! It's impossible to exchange livestock for food. Let's talk about controlling the locust plague first, then we'll talk about this. Chapter 369. Yesterday, after Li Shimin hosted a banquet for everyone, he discussed with the officials. After that, he discussed with the other officials how to deal with the locust plague. He even told them about Zhang Feng's plan without holding anything back. He also told them about how to set up a bone-strengthening powder factory and how to collect locusts. In fact, it was very simple. That was to use the human wave tactic and the drug to collect locusts. However, now that they had encountered Tubo and Tuyuhun, they had to think about it carefully. This plan could be used in the Tang dynasty. What was it? It was to generate revenue for the Tang dynasty, stimulate consumption, and make a lot of money. However, once this method was spread,
How much money would the Tang dynasty make? No more. Therefore, the officials were not stupid. Therefore, everyone used their imagination to the best of their ability. After having lunch in the imperial palace yesterday, they discussed a set of targeted policies. That was to use such a move against their own people. But what about against Tufan? I have the drug. But Lao Tzu will grind it into powder and you'll buy it. Then, the drug would not be as mild as the Tang dynasty's pesticide. As long as it could kill locusts, as for the rest? That would depend on their own luck. Moreover, there was one more important point. That was the planned army of chickens, ducks, and pigs. The Tang dynasty could not collect so many chickens and ducks from all over the world in a short time, and it would take a lot of time and energy. It was better to collect materials locally. Didn't Tubo want to beg me? Fine. Show me your sincerity. I'll help you raise these things for free. Then these things will have to work for me. Let's talk about the chickens, ducks, and pigs first. Someone did a calculation. If the two countries Jianan Circuit, Longyu Circuit, and Yuzhou Circuit could gather tens of millions of chickens, ducks, and pigs and so on, they would first use the pesticide to stun these things, then mobilize the army and the people to catch and collect them. Then they would send these animals to eat. Not only could they do it all at once, but they could also make the chickens, ducks, and pigs look for food on their own. They did not even need to be fed. Moreover, they could get countless eggs every day. What was that? That was another way to generate revenue. And all of that was for free. And that pig's head. He would give birth to piglets, wouldn't he? Then the piglet that was born would be his. Borrowing the chicken to lay eggs, this group of civil officials was very crafty. Therefore, Li Shimin was not worried about this matter. He left it to them to deal with. In the face of great benefits, these ministers were unusually united. What about cattle, sheep, horses, and fodder? No. If the locusts were ground into powder, not only could it be eaten by humans, it could also be eaten by livestock. When the time comes, the strong ones will stay and the old, weak, sick, and disabled will be replaced. I don't want your cattle, sheep, or horses. If you give me 10 million now, when I return it to you, as long as it's enough, I don't care if you're an old horse or something, as long as you have 4 hooves. Everyone in the political announcement hall was clear on this point. At this moment, everyone was quarreling over this matter. Even Bardal and Ao Raj were roaring until their throats were hoarse. But since they were alone, they could only swallow the grievance in their hearts and sign this agreement with Zhang Sun Wuji. They even stamped a bright red palm print on it. Afterwards, Chang Yaojin personally escorted this item to Li Shimin. Only then did the ministers feel as if they had won a battle. They were all grinning from ear to ear. Old brother. You guys have profited from this matter. Zhang Sun Wuji patted Bardal and Ao Raj's shoulders. The two of them nearly beat up Zhang Sun Wuji. He was 2F** king shameless. You can even say such words? Zhang Sun Wuji acted as though he did not see it and slowly said, Come. Let me calculate the debt for you guys. You will understand once you see it. Look, this food, I am giving it to you for free, right? You don't need to pay a single cent. We will also help you raise the livestock for free. Otherwise, when your locust plague is over, do you think that under the hunger, the crazy people will not slaughter the livestock to fill their stomachs? Am I right? Look again. The way to control the locusts is extremely complicated and the price is extremely high. The things I use to control the locusts also cost money. As I said before, I will charge you 1 tael of gold per caddy of medicinal powder. It's not expensive, right? Bardal and Ao Raj suppressed the grievance in their hearts. But what good idea could they have now? If there were other methods, they would have gone to help India or the Turks long ago. But their relationship with India had always been very delicate. It was very easy to lead a wolf into the house. And the Turks were also suffering from the same thing. Then, only the Tang dynasty was left. Although everything seemed to be very stable, the two of them still faintly felt uncomfortable. And when they came again, it was already within their expectations. They had a lot of gold. At most, after the locust plague was over, they would dig for gold for a few years and the money would be back. But the only thing that felt heartache was still the livestock. The only thing they did not understand was why the Tang dynasty was so kind this time. The two of them looked at each other with a bitter smile. Then they weakly cupped their hands. This matter is settled. We will not disturb you any further. We hope that Lord Zhong's son and the lords can put in a few good words in front of His Majesty the Emperor.
At that time, we will definitely thank you greatly. Good. Everything can be discussed. Alright, let's go. It's noon, time for lunch. This official has set up a banquet at Swallow Descent Restaurant. If the two of you do not mind, please come to Swallow Descent Restaurant. Chapter 370. How is it? Chang Yaojin entered the imperial study. Li Shimin asked. It's fine. Everything is going according to plan. Good.
Pass down the order.
Immediately launch an attack on public opinion and completely control the locusts. There must be no mistakes. At the same time, spread the news of the bone-strengthening powder. Tell Zhang's son Wuji about this matter and have him handle it. Also, go to the Long Yu circuit and keep a close eye on the situation of the Turks. Also, do not hesitate to spread the news of the exchange of grain for livestock to the Turks.
Got it?
Chang Yaojin hurriedly got down on one knee and said, This general obeys the decree. After Chang Yaojin left, Wei Zhang hurried over. The moment he entered the imperial study, he ran into Li Shimin, who was on his way out. Li Shimin walked with Wei Zhang as he asked, Beloved subject, what brings you here? This old subject is worried about Miss Jingshu. Your Majesty, you also know about the matter between Miss Jingshu and Brother Zhang Feng, but is it appropriate to talk about the banquet for the Tubo envoy at Swallow Descent Pavilion? Li Shimin slightly frowned. Swallow Descent Pavilion was divided into an inner and outer courtyard. The outer courtyard was the courtyard that was open to Chang'an, while the inner courtyard was the collection of women with mystical abilities from Chang'an and even the Tang dynasty. For example, there were those who could play musical instruments, those who were brimming with talent, those who were court prostitutes, or those who were offered to the Tang dynasty by foreign countries. Jing Shu, on the other hand, was rather special. She had originally been demoted to a court prostitute, but because of certain matters, she had become a musical prostitute. Moreover, because she had mastered a mystical zither music and her innate beauty, she had instantly become the most wondrous woman in Chang'an. Li Shimin also intended to introduce her to Zhang Feng. In his opinion, if the two of them could succeed, it would be too wonderful. Moreover, didn't this Zhang Feng once ask him that he wanted to marry the most beautiful woman? That was why there was the matter of Cheng Chumo bringing Zhang Feng to barge into Swallow Descent Tower at night. However, Li Shimin had forgotten about this. Basically, Jing Shu would always be present when he invited foreign envoys. But this time, all of the officials will be there. If this matter is leaked out, wouldn't it mean that I will harm Brother Zhang Feng? It would have been fine if he hadn't thought about it, but now that he thought about it, Li Shimin had a vague feeling that something was wrong. How about this? My dear minister, immediately send a decree to Zhang's son Wuji to change the location of the banquet to the imperial garden.
This.
Your Majesty, isn't this kind of banquet a bit inappropriate? Li Shimin shook his head. Forget it. Now isn't the time to think about this. Pass down the matter of Jing Shu. From now on, treat it as if she doesn't exist. No one is to take the initiative to mention it. If someone asks, just say that you don't know.
This subject obeys the decree.
Wei Zhang hurriedly cupped his fists and prepared to leave.
However, he seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly stopped.
Your Majesty, this subject still has one more matter. The Duanwu poetry meet is about to begin. Will Brother Zhang Feng be there? Li Shimin was also stunned. The poetry meet had been decided long ago. Jing Shu would definitely be there, and she would also announce the matter that was vaguely mentioned last time. Forget it, you should deal with this matter first. In the future, whether it's you or Zhang's son, you should personally make a trip to Brother Zhang Feng's place and ask him. If it really doesn't work, cancel this poetry meet.
Yes.
Wei Zheng left. However, before he walked out of the Vermilion Bird Gate, he saw Du Ruhui sitting at the Vermilion Bird Gate. Wei Zheng couldn't help but go up and say something to him. Prime Minister Wei, you mean you want me to go?
Yes.
The sooner this matter is done, the better. We can't let Brother Zhang Feng's identity be exposed. Once his name is out, it will definitely attract Guanlong's attention. For him, this is very bad.
Then fine.
I'm also waiting for you here. Du Ruhui heard this and nodded. However, Wei Zheng was stunned. What are you waiting for me for? Du Ruhui bitterly smiled. Do you still remember the mathematical formula that Brother Zhang Feng gave to my son? I don't know what kind of magic this thing has. My unfilial son actually hid in his room and recited this thing all day long. I also studied it for a while. This thing is indeed very profound and obscure, so I want to see Brother Zhang Feng. At the same time, I also made a copy of this for you. It's fine, you can also study it. While speaking, Du Ruhui took out a copy of the mathematical formula that Du Go had copied and handed it to Wei Zhang. Then he said, actually, I've long wanted to visit Brother Zhang Feng, but I haven't had the time. Since the locust plague has been resolved, do you want to go together? Wei Zhang looked at the thing in his hand in shock. In fact, he had seen this thing on the emperor's desk before. It was actually able to make Du Go addicted to it, and now it was said that the crown prince was also addicted to it. Was it really that magical? However, in the face of Du Ruhui's invitation, Wei Zhang shook his head and said, I won't go for now. I still have something to do. What's the matter? Jing Shu. Du Ruhui suddenly thought of something and didn't waste any more words. After all, this was not the place to talk. Moreover, both of them were smart people. They understood everything as soon as they spoke. The two cupped their hands and then hurriedly left. Chapter 371. Zhang Feng was very excited. Because, soon, he would be able to ride a tricycle. In the crucible, the molten iron was boiling, and the sweat on Zhang Feng's face was flowing like rain. But he was happy. There were no screws now, but could this be a problem for Zhang Feng? No. He thought of a wonderful thing, and that was mortise and tenon. Melt the molten iron, and then pour it into mortise and tenon, and then heat it red with fire, pass through the place that needed screws to be fixed, and smash it with a hammer. Although the effect was not as good, it was still passable. At least it would not fall apart. However, at this moment, someone knocked on the door of his tavern again. This made Zhang Feng speechless. Although the other parts of the tricycle were hidden, this small crucible was still very conspicuous. If it was someone who did not know this thing, he would not understand. Unless he was a transmigrator, otherwise, who would recognize this? No. There was another kind of person, and that was a carpenter. Or a blacksmith. But Zhang Feng's intuition told him that the person who came was either the old Xiaocai, old He, or Guzi. But it was strange. Last time, after Guzi, Zhu Zi, and the others heard from the drunk old scholar that he was going to open an academy, they basically stopped coming. It seemed to be Zhu Zi's father's idea. However, Zhang Feng was busy these days and did not have time to ask. This matter could only be discussed after the academy was opened. Knock, knock, knock. Zhang Feng dared to extinguish the crucible, and the door was knocked again. Zhang Feng hurriedly got up and shouted as he walked, I'm coming, the door is not locked, just open it. But, no one said anything. This made Zhang Feng a little confused. He opened the door. But he finally understood. What was the reason for this? Old Du? Why are you here? Come in quickly. The newcomer was Du Ruhui, who was dressed in plain clothes. When he saw Zhang Feng open the door, he instinctively cupped his fists. However, he was pulled inside by Zhang Feng. Then, he closed the door again. However, in that short moment, at least 30 locusts flew into the tavern. After asking Du Ruhui to sit down, Zhang Feng asked in confusion, Old Du, you're here today? It's all because of that brat Dabing. Du Ruhui said snappily. What's wrong with flatbread? Zhang Feng was shocked. Could it be that this guy had gone crazy from studying the division formula? He wasn't worried about others, but he was a little worried about calligraphy addict Du Dabing. Back then, it was because this guy was too king long-winded that Zhang Feng gave him this toy. He even deliberately said that he would only be considered a master if he could calculate the division of numbers within 3 digits in one go. Could it be that this guy, Old Du, is Dabing all right? Sigh. He's fine. It's just that these days, he hasn't left the house. I've been hearing him in his room all day long. That's why I'm here to ask if you have any good ideas. It can't go on like this. Brother Zhang Feng, can you show me? About this, Zhang Feng was a little confused. This was a good thing.
One had to know that in a few decades, this would be a new toy that would sweep through the Great Tang. Wasn't this good? Although there were less than 20 people studying mathematics in the Imperial College during Dao's time, what did this mean? However, these 20 people were the elites of the elites in the end. They basically established the legacy of Zhang Guan, Wu Zetian's Golden Age, and even the Kaiyuan Golden Age later on. They laid a foundation that couldn't be ignored. This was the prosperity created by a group of people whose brain speed was as high as 75% under the leadership of an emperor who appreciated them. Without these people, would the Great Tang be able to prosper and prosper financially? No, no, no. At that time they would be cheated to death, not to mention so many people who coveted the Tang dynasty. Not to mention that the Tang dynasty only needed a ship and a flag to make people tremble. Without these people, perhaps the influence of the Kaiyuan Golden Age of the Tang dynasty would still be there, but it would not be so glorious and even affect the whole world. Why? There were dozens of them, and they did nothing but think about this every day. How could you beat them? That would be a strange thing. Mathematics. It not only included addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. It also included the twists and turns of military planning, the division of geographical routes, and so on. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng elbowed Du Ruhui mysteriously and said, "Old Du, let me ask you something." "Say it." "Look at your son, De Bing. He is so obsessed with this. Do you think he will become a monster in 5 years?" Du Ruhui's face darkened and said, "Brother Zhang Feng, this old man came here today for this matter. That man, doesn't he want to protect the country and serve the country? He seems to be obsessed all day. Don't be sarcastic to me." "No, no, no." Zhang Feng waved his hand repeatedly. "I'm not being sarcastic. To be honest, I believe you have seen the division. Let me ask you, what do you think will happen if this thing is used in business calculation? What if it is used in other places?" Chapter 372. Du Ruhui was a little dumbfounded. He had some understanding of mathematics before. It was precisely because Du Go was obsessed with it that he wanted to see what was so fascinating about it. That was why he seriously researched it. Although this thing was very complicated, it contained things that couldn't be learned anywhere else. Du Ruhui believed that once this thing was really developed, it would definitely have very incomprehensible effects in terms of application, business, people, and so on. After all, this thing was something that Emperor Yang of Sui Yangguang had spent a lot of effort to obtain. Although the Sui dynasty had been destroyed, this thing had been preserved. Not for any other reason but because this thing was really useful. But he thought about how Du Go liked to study these strange things, and he was afraid that if he tirelessly studied this thing all day long, it would not be good for Du Go. For example, being possessed. "Brother Zhang Feng, I know what you mean. I'm just worried that my son will be possessed because of this." "It shouldn't be, right?" Zhang Feng rubbed his chin, not daring to be sure. This guy was a stubborn donkey. Once he fell into it, he would definitely study it to death. He was a little guilty. The last time he gave him the division table, on one hand, to show off. On the other hand, it was because this guy was too damn annoying. "How about this? I'll give you something else later. When you go back, tell De Bing that this is another method of division, called multiplication." "If that's the case, won't it make him even more?" "It won't." Zhang Feng shook his head. Lao Tzu had personally come looking for him, and because he wanted to show off last time, he gave this thing to Du Go. Damn it, if something happened it would be hard to say. Now that he was giving him the multiplication table, although he was a little reluctant, this was something that would happen sooner or later. Anyway, De Bing would be a free tutor. It was only a matter of time before he studied it now and in the future. And this thing, unless he did not care about his life, if he could study it at the same time. In that case, Zhang Feng had nothing to say. He could only give him a thumbs up and ask Chen Tinyu to throw this idiot into the Wei River for a bath. Then, he would ask him to figure out why people could sometimes float on water and sometimes not. Zhang Feng had 10,000 ways to deal with this kind of bookworm. Seeing that Du Ruhui was about to ask about the multiplication table, Zhang Feng hurriedly changed the topic. He knew that if he asked Du Ruhui about it, he wouldn't be able to explain it to him within a day. "Oh right, old Du, you must have come here for the bone-strengthening powder, right?" Zhang Feng had a look that said, "Don't try to lie to me." From time to time,
he would glance at Du Ruhui's ruddy face. Du Ruhui sighed. Actually, that is indeed the case. However, do you know about the Tubo envoy? I know. How was it, old Du? Was my prediction accurate? Like I said, how could His Majesty not think of this? Why? Could it be that Lao Li didn't act ahead of time? Zhang Feng patted Du Ruhui's shoulder and boasted. You have tasted the sweetness of this matter. You also know how frightening the prophets are. Among all of you, I think you are the most honest and most like a businessman. Look at Lao Li, he looks like a family head. How could he understand these twists and turns? Also, that old son is too cunning. I advise you to have less contact with him in the future. However, if you all form a business alliance, you know what old son is suited for. As for that old Wei, he is a F*** king government official. An old Feng, that idiot. Oh right, does he not have a son? In front, Du Ruhui was very pleased to hear this. Who didn't want to be flattered? Moreover, it was a strange person like Zhang Feng. However, the more he talked, the more Du Ruhui felt that something was wrong. This idiot was inquiring about their background. He hurriedly chuckled and said, About that, old Feng's son has always been managing things in Long Yu. To tell you the truth, the few of us have already formed a merchant alliance. Otherwise, how could the few of us compete with others? And that Guanlong, you know. Where was Feng Yai? Of course, he was managing things behind the scenes. As one of the 4 great devil kings of Chang'an, how could he be well? However, Cheng Chumo, Du Go, Zhang Sun, and the others had all surfaced. If there was no one to clean up the mess behind the scenes, it would have been F***king exposed long ago. Although Du Ruhui knew that this matter couldn't be hidden for long, at least now it was impossible to reveal everything to Zhang Feng. At least, before His Majesty personally announced this matter, whoever dared to say it would be His Majesty's enemy. His Majesty's brother, the only brother that His Majesty would always remember. Once this relationship was revealed, who could guarantee that they would still be brothers? Therefore, before His Majesty said it, none of them dared. Every time they came out, Feng Yai would be like facing a great enemy. Thousands of brocade guards would spread out. Once there were a few people who knew them, they would be invited to drink a cup of tea. As for what tea? That was all up to Feng Yai, the Devil King's preference. The Imperial Power's special permission was not a joke. Who dared to say anything when the small cod was revealed? Even if you were a prince, if your leg was broken, you wouldn't have a place to cry. By the way, Brother Zhang Feng, speaking of which, I heard that you are going to participate in a meeting? Du Ruhui hurriedly changed the topic. He didn't dare to continue this topic. He had experienced Zhang Feng's power. A little carelessness would lead you into a ditch. Zhang Feng heard this and instantly frowned. It's fine if you don't say it. Now that you mention it, I feel like beating someone. Damn bastard, what is Chentinia doing these days? Why didn't I see him? And those bastards, what are they doing? If it wasn't for those bastards, would I be like this? Du Ruhui's mouth twitched. Don't say that. Didn't I hear that you are going to set up an academy? This is a good thing. And if you are the champion, then Jingshu will rightfully become yours. All the scholars in Chang'an wouldn't dare to say anything. You must know that Jingshu is the signature of Yen Lai Restaurant. You should know what kind of place Yen Lai Restaurant is. And in this poetry gathering, not only will you be able to win the beauty, you will also be able to spread the name of the academy. Why not? As for Chen Tiniu and the others, they are a little busy these days. When Du Ruhui said this, he couldn't help but sigh. Holding up the bowl of wine he drank. Although Zhang Feng knew about this matter, he also understood that this poetry gathering was a must. But when he thought about how he couldn't even see the shadow of those guys for a few days, he couldn't vent his anger even if he wanted to. This made him a little anxious. But when he saw Du Ruhui acting like this, he couldn't help but be stunned. Old Du, what's wrong with you? Nothing much. I just feel that our family business is getting bigger and bigger. Not only do we have connections with various parties in Jinla, but we're also an allied chamber of commerce. You know everything about this. When there are more people, not only will their mouths be noisy, but there's also one thing about people. Once they see benefits and there's no restraint, trouble will come. Zhang Feng understood.
This guy had encountered the drawbacks of the family business. That is, there are too many idle people and too few people who can do things. Zhang Feng couldn't help but laugh. I thought something had happened to you, old Du. That's it? You, just put your heart in your stomach. Since you are here today, then as brothers, I will give you some pointers. I guarantee that you, old Du, will enjoy it for the rest of your life. Chapter 373. Really? Du Ruhui was excited. He was already very old this year. Although he had worked hard and the emperor had never mistreated him, he was still somewhat dissatisfied. He hadn't done anything spectacular. The more time he spent with Zhang Feng, and the more he was influenced by Zhang Feng's calligraphy at home, the more Du Ruhui wanted to create something that could be passed down. He didn't know what this thing was. But he had this impulse. Not only him, but everyone who had interacted with Zhang Feng was also like this. Not to mention anything else, just the things that Zhang Feng had said and done, which one of them wasn't enough to shake the heavens and shake the earth? At this moment, seeing Zhang Feng like this, he couldn't help but tear up. Although Du Go was also very hard-working, the father knew better. Du Go and the others were destined to help the crown prince ascend the throne and become important members of the next generation's leadership. But he also knew that Du Go's temperament greatly disappointed the crown prince and the others. There was no other reason than that Du Go was too serious. Moreover, he was a stubborn person. He couldn't compare to Wei Zheng. Li Chengqian couldn't compare to Li Shimin either. Who knew if the Du family would be able to flourish under Du Go's leadership once these old fellows were no longer around? But ever since he learned that Zhang Feng had passed down something different to each of them, Du Ruhui's heart had become heated. He wanted the Du family to be stable. On one hand, it depended on Du Go's fortune in the future. On the other hand, it depended on whether he could create a name for the Du family before 100 years. Something that could ensure that the Du family wouldn't wither for at least 100 years. And this was something that Du Ruhui had been brooding over. Especially after seeing the Locust's great undertaking and the Table of Division, he felt even more urgent. Old Du! Although we haven't had many opportunities to meet, I, Zhang Feng, believe that I'm quite good at reading people. From what you said just now, I've actually already seen it. So, when Iron Bull and the others came to find me, I actually already understood. Actually, Old Li has already thought of this long ago, let alone you. If you want your descendants to continue living, then the path of commerce must not be the end. Instead, it must be how you can make use of this relationship to your advantage so that your descendants can enter an official career. That's why you let each of them master a technique. Du Ruhui asked. Zhang Feng nodded. Of course. To be honest, I didn't think so much at first. But in this feudal era, the eldest son is bound to be the heir of the family business. But what about the second son? When you're here, perhaps nothing will be a problem. But have you ever thought about how the brotherhood will develop once you're behind the scenes because of their interests? That's why I saw their dreams in Iron Bull and the others. That's why I said it casually. I didn't expect these bastards to be so good. They're not stupid. They have their own dreams. It's only because they can't get recognition that they're dissolute. They want to prove their existence, or they want to use this method to numb themselves and attract your attention. Du Ruhui's expression couldn't help but change a little. All these years, it was true that they had always been strict with their son. But he knew what Du Go liked. What Do he liked? As a father, he didn't know at all. Brother Zhang Feng. Du Ruhui felt a little guilty. He sighed heavily and said, "Thank you. Isn't this what brothers should do? Actually, these are all things in the future. At the very least, they have to wait until they graduate from the academy before they can really take charge of some things, or enter the imperial court and so on. The current situation is actually very obvious. With a big family and a big business, there are bound to be some problems. People are actually quite contradictory. They always want to be understood, but they're afraid that others will see through them." Zhang Feng sighed and said, "But we will always encounter a lot of things that we don't understand in life, or on the way forward. So if you care too much about other people's opinions, then your life will become a piece of cloth for your crotch. Whatever other people fart, you'll have to take it and bear it." This, Du Ruhui was shocked. Although these things seemed easy to understand and were a little vulgar, if one carefully thought about it, they would realize that there were many, many wise sayings contained within. Brother Zhongfeng, I've learned something. Du Ruhui was so excited that his whole body was shaking. He didn't speak much. It wasn't that he didn't have anything to say, but that in the imperial court, one sentence would often cause him to fall into the abyss. Moreover, the imperial court was a big dye vat, so he cared too much about what others said. But now that he thought about it, Du Ruhui suddenly felt enlightened. Just like what Brother Zhongfeng said, if everyone cared too much about what others said and how others felt, then what was the difference between that and a crotch cloth? There was no difference. Involuntarily, Du Ruhui stood up excitedly and bowed like a Confucian. He said, "Today, to be able to have Brother Zhongfeng explain my doubts, old Du is really... Enough. You're already so old, don't come and bow to me. Do you still want to give me a memorial tablet?" Chapter 374. Zhongfeng was speechless. The most annoying people were scholars like them. If you're a scholar, you're a dabbler. If you're a businessman, you're also a dabbler. How could he not go and pick up the things that sour elementary scholar had thrown away? Why did they have to be so scholarly? Did they think they were Confucian scholars? Were they not? All right, just remember what I said. As for the rest, you can do as you see fit. Old Du, let me ask you. Have you started the bone-strengthening powder yet? I'm waiting to get my share of the money. Du Ruhui was speechless. Just a moment ago, they were talking about serious matters. Now they were talking about money? If you really want money, just say it. I believe that as long as the emperor hears about it, he will give it to you no matter how much you want, right? Do you have to be so obsessed with money? It's all right. We're trying it out in Long Yu, and the results are good for now. So, Tai Nyo and the others have gone to help. And you know those guys, they're all debauches in Chang'an City. If they go and spread the news, they'll be better off than us old guys. Zhongfeng nodded. Not bad, that's a good idea. But wouldn't it be better if we let this happen in Chang'an? Why should we let it happen in Long Yu? Sigh. Du Ruhui sighed. You don't know. The benefits involved in this matter are too terrifying. Moreover, Long Yu is the base camp of us old fellows. Last time, the locust eggs incident had already established some connections. It's not as powerful as it is in Chang'an. Therefore, we have no choice but to put it in Long Yu. Du Ruhui told Zhongfeng about what had happened after the Fish Emperor had discussed the matter with Zhongfeng. Zhongfeng could not help but hear some clues from it. They did not want to use Chang'an, but had to go to Long Yu, a place surrounded by wolves. They had encountered a big problem. Old Du, tell me honestly, did you run into some trouble? Alas! Du Ruhui couldn't help but let out a long sigh when he saw that Zhongfeng was finally on the right track. Brother, my heart is bitter. I was too embarrassed to talk about this at first, but since you asked, it's not good for us to not talk about it. So, sigh. Zhongfeng pursed his lips. Then don't say it. Did you have to show an expression as if Lao Tzu had something on his mind the moment you walked in? This caused Lao Tzu to ponder for a long time. Old Du, we're brothers, so Mynheer knows my temperament. If there's anything you need, just tell me. If I can help, I'll definitely help. But let me say this first, if you offend the emperor or commit any murder or arson, I'll immediately send you to the authorities. Du Ruhui waved his hand. Do I look like someone who would commit murder or arson? It's just that ever since you've established a relationship with Zhongsun Wuji and some people in the imperial court, such things have to be reported. So, Lao Li and the others thought about sending some bone-strengthening powder. But now we're in big trouble. Basically, everyone in Chang'an is here. Old Chen's house is full of copper coins. You say, this. If they only wanted to make money, that would be a good thing. But they just had to King bring their people in. They can't do anything and leave nothing behind. I can't afford to offend them. I want to chase them away, but I can't do it openly. So, because of this matter, we old brothers have been worrying so much that our hair has turned white. Zhongfeng was speechless. That's it? Yes. No, Brother Zhongfeng, we've already done that. Do you still think it's not serious enough? Zhongfeng shrugged and asked in disbelief. I thought it was something serious. It turns out that it's just a trivial matter.
Don't you feel embarrassed? We've been friends for almost a year. In this year, whenever you guys drink here, you'd better keep your ears open. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done such a stupid thing.
Fine.
Zhang Feng slapped his head. If it were someone else he could really say something. But it was old Chen who did it. And this matter, Zhang Feng thought for a second. Only old Chen could do it. This silly guy. How dare you accept any kind of money? Zhang Feng was speechless. Scold old Chen? He didn't dare. Old Chen's son slapped him to the back. If he scolded old Chen behind his back, wouldn't he send Lao Tzu away with a slap? Fine, fine. Tell old Chen not to accept any kind of money. Be careful that he doesn't give away all the money he earns. We won't get any benefits at all.
Sigh.
Got it. Du Ruhui nodded like he was pecking rice. Of course, the matter he was asking about was not business. It was the civil and military officials in the imperial court. It was as if these people had fallen into the eyes of money. He was worried that these fellows would go crazy thinking about money and do something illegal. Moreover, they wouldn't do anything in the imperial court. This was also the reason why Du Ruhui had come this time. There were people who did everything else and they did a good job. But he, the Minister of Personnel, and Fang Xianling, assisted the emperor in handling the imperial court. At this time, because of the locust incident, everything was left to him. However, the order in the imperial court was giving him a headache. He didn't even participate in the emperor's discussion on the management of the locust plague. It was not that he didn't want to, but the imperial court was still operating. At this time, Du Ruhui and Zhang Feng were silent. Du Ruhui was waiting for Zhang Feng to give him an idea. But Zhang Feng was different. He was troubled by something. Chapter 375. Zhang Feng was very conflicted. Once this matter was out, that smart emperor would definitely think of this at the first moment. Definitely, this thing was a great weapon for him to brag about when he went to the imperial court. Moreover, he wanted to use this thing to build a good relationship with Feng Mao, Du Duan, and Wei Zheng. Was it appropriate to say it at this time? However, looking at old Du's worried face, Zhang Feng could not help but feel helpless. Forget it, old Du. Don't worry about this trivial matter.
Sigh.
Lao Tzu prepared this thing to build a good relationship with Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, and Wei Zheng when he goes to the imperial court. Forget it, you got lucky. Zhang Feng muttered to himself gloomily. However, Du Ruhui almost blurted out when he heard this. He pointed at his own nose and was about to shout out. Don't wait, I am Du Ruhui. However, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Although he was excited, Du Ruhui also knew the importance of this matter. Brother Zhang Feng. Then I, old Du, will thank you here. When the time comes and you want to enter the imperial court as an official, I, old Du, will definitely give you all I have and recommend you. Heh. Zhang Feng smiled. Old Du, are you doubting me?
No.
Du Ruhui waved his hand repeatedly. Zhang Feng did not want to fool him anymore. Moreover, he still had serious business to do. All right, this matter is very easy to handle. You just have to remember that no matter who it is, they will have to be controlled by you when they go to your territory. As the saying goes, a country has its laws and a family has its rules. As a merchant company, naturally, there are rules to speak of. If everyone is like this, then I advise you not to do this business. The few of us are doing fine. Why are you looking for trouble? Zhang Feng shrugged. Since it's already happened, let's not talk about it anymore. How about you tell Lao Li exactly what happened? Actually, the method is very simple. It's just a sign-in list. What's more, it's a work registration form. Du Ruhui, who was listening carefully, was dumbfounded. What the hell?
Sign-in sheet.
Sign in at work? What is this? Listen to me first. Zhang Feng waved his hand and poured Du Ruhui a bowl of wine. He took out a plate of fried yellow locusts from the counter and said, Actually, you can also understand this is going to work. Do you understand? You're the one who works for me. Do you come in the morning and leave after work at night? Only this counts as a day?
Yes, that makes sense.
Du Ruhui nodded thoughtfully. But this sign-in, what does it mean?
Zhang Feng had so many shocking sentences that they were numb to it. So they were not surprised. However, this new term still surprised Du Ruhui. More than that, he was shocked. How could he not be shocked? At this time, because of the locusts, the court was basically crazy. They were all immersed in it, so much so that many court affairs could not be carried out. If this went on, everyone would want to get rich. How bad would that be? Although the emperor knew about it and did it on purpose, it was not the right time to clean up the mess after the plague of locusts was over. There were many things that had to be done. The trade with Zhenla, the Tubo and Tuyuhan, and the plan against the Turks in the future. Which one of these things did not need people to do? If there was a slight mistake, it would definitely cause an irreparable disaster. Du Ruhui could not help but be excited. Brother Zhang Feng, what do you think this sign-in sheet is? Is it a kind of rule? No. You can say that it is a kind of rule. But this thing only restricts whether that person is on duty, whether he comes or not, and whether he has done anything. As for the rest, it's up to you. I don't know how you're going to run your Chamber of Commerce, but as for how you're going to run it, you have to figure it out yourself. Yes. But you just have to remember one thing. Hang this watch in the most conspicuous place. I don't need you to say anything about who is sleeping soundly on duty, or who doesn't come, or who slacks off. For this benefit, I think there are still many people who want to fight to the death for this big business of locusts. When the time comes, hee. You only need to write down the details of each of them working for you in a book and hang it there. People want their faces, and trees want their bark. When the time comes, you just need to hand out this soft knife, and there will naturally be countless people who will stab it for you. And it doesn't matter which high official that person is working for. After all, the benefits of the locusts are there, and the meat is only so big, isn't it? That's it. Du Ruhui was dumbfounded. However, he had truly heard something that made his hair stand on end. As long as this thing was hung in the imperial palace or the imperial court, who would dare slack off? Who would dare to ignore the emperor's orders? Who would dare to sleep and drink while on duty? Who would dare to not come to the imperial court for no reason, or to just call in sick and have fun at home? Who would dare? Chapter 376. Du Ruhui's turbid eyes involuntarily flashed with a hint of excitement and excitement. Just a moment ago, he was still thinking about how he could do something spectacular in his lifetime. Now, didn't he have it? Didn't that person want to do something? Who didn't? Everyone wanted to. Especially people like him, who had basically reached the end of his official position. If he could do something spectacular when he was about to retire, even if he died on the spot, he would not have lived in vain. This was to bring honor to his ancestors. This was the blessing he set up for the next generation of his Du family. At the thought of this, Du Ruhui was so excited that he wanted to get up and bow again, but was pressed down on the bench by Zhang Feng speechlessly. Okay, do you really want to shorten my life? If you really want to thank me, then do it well and make more money for me. This is the key. This bone-strengthening powder, damn it, if I had known, I wouldn't have told you. Wouldn't it be better if I kept quiet and didn't make a fortune? Zhang Feng was a little depressed. Brother Zhang Feng, today I thank you for clearing my doubts. Today, I won't disturb you anymore. Our Du family will never forget your great kindness. Okay. If there's nothing else, then get out of here. Why are you being so literary? Do you think you are a great writer of that generation? Zhang Feng got up and drove him away speechlessly. Du Ruhui also knew how to behave. He hurriedly got up, dug out 3 taels of silver from his embroidered robe and put it on the table before leaving. He was not stingy, but he really didn't have much money on him. When he walked out of the pub, he looked at the locusts all over the sky. In Du Ruhui's view, how were those locusts? They were just copper coins flying all over the sky. Du Ruhui turned around and glanced at Zhang Feng's little tavern. Only then did he salute Zhang Feng as a peer before hurriedly leaving. Obviously, he forgot to ask Zhang Feng for the multiplication table. At this time, how could he still remember? Even if he remembered, so what? This thing won't run away, they can just come back when the time comes. However, Brother Zhang Feng's method must be implemented as soon as possible. This will play a big role in the emperor's plan. Furthermore, in the future, all the officials would have to use a new set of rules and regulations. To the Minister of Personnel, this was a very important matter. He had a premonition that if he really did that, the situation in the imperial court would be completely different. Who would dare to slack off? Who would dare to delay? Those who are eyeing this position will do everything they can to take you down. Although it was shameful to do so, so what? However, the thing that Brother Zhangfeng was talking about, could it really be applied? Du Ruhui couldn't help but feel confused again. If this matter was done well, then it would definitely be remembered for eternity. But what if? What if this thing didn't have any miraculous effects and instead made people feel disgusted? Du Ruhui couldn't help but slowly stop in his tracks. Looking at the locusts all over the sky, he couldn't help but think of the faces of everyone in the imperial court. Even the emperor, the princes, the lords, and the local officials. Du Ruhui couldn't help but understand. A thin layer of cold sweat appeared on his forehead, and it couldn't help but drip down. If he followed Zhang Feng's plan and followed it, he would definitely be condemned by the officials in less than a day. This was a business model. He forgot one thing. That was, until the end, they told Zhang Feng that they were businessmen. This thing was suitable for business, but not for the management system of the imperial court. Now that the imperial court had its own set of perfect system, if this thing was introduced at this time, although it could be said to have some effect, it would be the opposite of what the retired emperor and the emperor had set. Although the system of the previous dynasty was followed, to a large extent, there were slight changes. But the current system was the opposite of what the previous system had set. Once he dared to mention it, he would definitely be accused of treason. He dared to change the system set by the emperor and the retired emperor. What was this? If this wasn't treason, then what was? Du Ruhui took a deep breath. He might as well not leave. Sitting under the black locust tree at the entrance of Huitong Square, he stared blankly at the crown of the tree, which still hadn't been eaten up by the locusts. He recalled the original system of the imperial court, the criminal law, and all of them. Then, he compared them with a vague thing in his heart one by one. Slowly, he finally figured it out. It turns out that the key point lies in the completeness of this system. The degree of completeness of the system is too high, and it still needs the officials in the imperial court to supervise the implementation. But once an illegal person takes advantage of this loophole, it will definitely cause a great impact on the order of the imperial court. But, what if we add a little reward for good and punish evil to the original system of officials, and this thing of signing in at the imperial court? Chapter 377. For the next few days, all the officials were busy preparing for the locusts. There were even rumors in Chang'an City from time to time. The so-called guidance from a master was a punishment from God. It was a supreme auspicious sign given by God out of pity for the Tang dynasty. But the people didn't understand. It had eaten up all the food and even the wild vegetables that everyone liked to eat. How could this thing be auspicious? It was as wide as a yaksha. How could this be called auspicious? The people were puzzled. But at this moment, if you said so, there would definitely be people pointing at your nose and scolding you for being ignorant. Why? Because this news came from the inside of the palace. His Majesty had already said that this thing was an auspicious sign. How could you say that it was a pest with a snap of your fingers? Are you tired of living? Such things kept happening in Chang'an City. As the matter was fermenting, the news of the mysterious bone-strengthening powder had also spread out. It was even more bizarre. In a tea house, the storyteller came early in the morning, which was rare. The locusts were all over the sky. Basically, no one could do anything. If they stayed at home, they would get sick. It was also unbearable to stay with their wives every day. Fortunately, now everyone had a little money left in their pockets. So, this cheap and affordable tea house became the best place for people to escape the summer heat and find work. The tea house, which usually had a bleak business, now became the most popular place in Chang'an City. Bang! When the storyteller, Blind Wang, slapped the tea table hard, the noisy tea house instantly quieted down. Blind Wang was not in a hurry. He slowly pulled out the folding fan from the back of his head and slowly fanned himself. Then he said, "Dear fellow villagers, today, Blind Wang will talk about something different. Otherwise, if you've already vomited after hearing about other things, I would have F*** King vomited as well." Ha ha ha. The people burst into laughter and were instantly interested. Blind Wang, what are you going to talk about today? Are you talking about what happened last night with Widow's son from Happy Village in the east of the city? Or were you chased out by some customer who found out you stole books? Ahahaha. The laughter of the crowd did not make Blind Wang jump up and down. The people of Chong had 3 good things. The first was to squat in Swallow Descent brothel to see the real courtesan. The second was to stroll along the newly built river and stroll around the eastern and western markets with his hands behind his back. However, at this juncture these 2 things could not be done. Swallow Descent restaurant's doors were locked tightly, afraid that the lecher would not be able to hold himself back and barge in. As for the riverside, the eastern and western markets had become the breeding grounds of the locusts. That fellow, with a single stomp, you could crush several locusts. Who would dare to go out? What about the third one? Naturally, it was because of Blind Wang. But it was very rare. This time, Blind Wang acted as if he didn't hear the teasing of the crowd. He continued to wave the thick, sticky fan with a smile on his face. Even the words on the paper could not be seen. It was as if he had the pearl of wisdom in his hands. Ayaya! Old man is reading a sage's book. How can a scholar like me do such a dirty thing? Today, Old man is going to talk about the auspicious signs flying in the sky. Nonsense! When the crowd heard this, they could not help but roll their eyes. It was this old thing again. Blind Wang said slowly, last night, I don't know how many of you have heard of the bone-strengthening powder? Bone-strengthening powder? What is that? I seem to have eavesdropped on the boss saying something. It seems that this thing is something extraordinary. Yes. This master is right. Blind Wang suddenly slapped his fan on the palm of his hand and said, This bone-strengthening powder is indeed a wonderful thing. Last night, outside Taichung Temple, I heard a woman talking about this thing. That woman seemed to be the wife of one of the lords in Taichung Temple. That woman seemed to be asking for the bone-strengthening powder from her old father. I've heard of it. As long as you drink a bowl of the bone-strengthening powder, even though it is only the size of a teacup, it is worth a big bowl of mutton soup. What? This is so magical? Blind Wang, you're not fooling people, are you? How can there be such a thing in this world? Blind Wang shook his head mysteriously. When the crowd was almost finished, he continued, Not only that, Old man also heard that this thing can strengthen the bones. Although it is not the thing that can rejuvenate one's youth, the old man in his 70s or 80s only needs to drink this thing for 3 days to straighten his back in an instant. Moreover, he can carry a bucket of water with one hand and walk for 10 miles without blushing or panting. Hiss. Everyone heard this. They could not help but gasp. Impossible. Blind Wang, maybe you're fooling people again. F***ck your grandma. If this thing is really so awesome, why haven't we heard of it? Everyone was furious. However, Blind Wang only moved his lips slightly. This thing fell from heaven when Master Yuan Tiangang prayed to heaven on the birthday of the retired emperor last time. Moreover, the emperor and the retired emperor personally tried it. All the ministers in the court have tried it. Do you think that the emperor is fooling you? This. Chapter 378. Li Shimin was very pleased. Especially when he looked at the documents that had been sent back from Chang'an. It was as if he was looking at a lump of gold that had fallen from the sky. The rumors had indeed spread from here. Zhang Sun Wuji was very smart when it came to doing things like this. Moreover, he had already done it once. It would be strange if something went wrong again. Moreover, at this time, everyone had been affected by the locust plague. Everyone had suffered. Who wouldn't want to make money at this time? The matter of the bone-strengthening powder had been settled. Next up. Just as Li Shimin was happily thinking about what to do next, he suddenly saw a different memorial in the pile of documents. What was different about it? This memorial was actually sent by Du Ruhue in his personal name. Was there a need to do this? Li Shimin looked at the thick memorial and flipped it open curiously. The words, on duty reward and punishment system, that entered his eyes deeply attracted his attention. Li Shimin couldn't help but be interested. The Minister of Personnel had actually used such a method to hand over the memorial. What did this mean? It was obviously something that could be done by just opening his mouth. That meant, looking at the memorial, the joy on Li Shimin's face slowly froze. Little Gizi, summon Du Ruhui. Yes. Li Shimin's expression turned serious. No wonder he would use such a method to hand over the memorial. If others knew about this, what would it mean? This would be treason. Daring to violate the laws of the imperial court was already a violation of the interests of the imperial family. However, Li Shimin knew that if it were an ordinary person, he wouldn't even look at such a thing. He would just wave his hand. Strike first. However, Du Ruhui was different. If he could say it, it meant that this matter was very serious. Moreover, Li Shimin thought about it. There was indeed a problem with the imperial court system. Moreover, was this really something that Du Ruhui could come up with? He didn't believe it. Instead, he saw Zhang Feng's shadow between the lines. Moreover, didn't Du Ruhui go to Zhang Feng's place the day before yesterday? Thinking of Zhang Feng, Li Shimin's face had a touch of excitement. A moment later, Du Ruhui hurried into the imperial study. This old subject Du Ruhui pays respect to your majesty. Minister Du, please rise. Hurry up and tell me, what's the deal with this reward and punishment? Replying to your majesty. This is something I came across by chance the day before yesterday. Li Shimin pursed his lips. Speak human language. Du Ruhui said. Since your majesty has seen through it, this was indeed Brother Zhang Feng's idea. Now, because of the locusts, everyone in the imperial court is united. This is a good thing, but the drawbacks of not doing their duty for a long time still exist. Moreover, now everyone is trying to reap benefits. In the long run, who can respect the discipline of the imperial court? So, you discussed with Brother Zhang Feng and came up with this thing. Li Shimin sat next to Du Ruhui and drank tea. He glanced at the memorial on the table and said, That's right. However, this thing was basically made by this old subject. It was also because of one sentence from Brother Zhang Feng. What sentence? Li Shimin was interested. He said that these people are temporary workers for you. Li Shimin heard this. He couldn't help but frown. But the next moment, he couldn't help but ask, Do you mean that the system of the imperial court should be strictly improved? Yes, your majesty. You've seen it before. Everyone is lazy. Although your majesty is in favor of spreading the word, you've also seen that the disadvantages are obvious. That is, the people of the 5 families and 7 nobles, as well as the Guanlong and Shandong nobles, don't do anything for the imperial court. As a result, although there are many people in the imperial court, some of them die of boredom, and some of them die of exhaustion. There are even some who take idle jobs and idle around all day. We couldn't target them before, but now that your majesty has taken a side in the matter of the locusts, if we let them go on like this at this time, who in the imperial court wants to do anything for them? I'm worried that if this kind of thing can't be rectified for a long time, the consequences will be unimaginable if everyone in the imperial court imitates it. The big reshuffle this time is an opportunity. That's why when I went to Brother Zhang Feng's place, I was a little depressed, so I went to Brother Zhang Feng to complain. But Brother Zhang Feng thought it was a small matter, so we talked about it. It was also under Brother Zhang Feng's guidance that I came up with this reward and punishment system. Although this system is new, it's all simplified and added according to the original laws of the Tang dynasty. As he spoke, Du Ruhui excitedly knelt on the ground and said, Your Majesty, this old subject knows the consequences of breaking the laws of the Great Tang without permission. Thus, this old subject risks death to request your Majesty to carry out this decree. Li Shimin was speechless. He personally helped Du Ruhui up and said, I didn't say anything. I've also seen this. Approved. Chapter 379. In fact, Li Shimin had long wanted to reorganize the court. Every morning, he basically wanted to kill people. This was before the locust plan. Now that everything had been dealt with, it was time to reorganize. But he didn't expect that Du Ruhui had thought ahead of him. How could this not make Li Shimin happy? My dear minister, I approve of this matter. This matter in the court, if I hadn't suppressed the anger in my heart, I would have killed a lot of people. Everyone thinks that I have a good temper, but only you know that I am actually waiting for an opportunity. Guanlong and the 5 surnames and 7 hopes, it's time to reorganize. Li Shimin suddenly felt a little sad. He couldn't predict what would happen if he fought against Guanlong at this time, but this was something that had to be done. A country, a monarch, if he couldn't even control his own people, how could he unify the world? But if they were to clash with these two forces right now? One night, Li Shimin worried about this matter for the whole night. The next morning, at the moment when the morning bell rang, Li Shimin arrived at the political announcement hall early. Looking at the empty imperial court, he suddenly and slowly wrote the word Zhan on the Xian paper. And all the ministers who entered the political announcement hall were stunned. But seeing the emperor in a daze, no one dared to speak and stood quietly. When everyone entered the political announcement hall, Xiao Gizi gently called, "Your Majesty, it's time to go to court." Li Shimin raised his head and looked at the people in the court. "Go to court. Kneel. Long live the emperor. Rise." Li Shimin waved his hand lightly. "Is there a memorial today?" Hearing this, a minister hurriedly got up and said, replying to the emperor, "This old minister has a memorial. Announce." Recently, although the rumors of bone-strengthening powder and locusts have been spread, and the people are running around to tell each other about this matter, and all the people's enthusiasm has soared infinitely. No one complains about this disaster, but there is still a problem. What is it? Replying to Your Majesty, this old subject has made some calculations recently. Although we have stored up provisions in and around Chang'an, the livestock industry has suffered serious losses. Many livestock have even shown signs of starvation. Emperor! Chang Yaojin cupped his fists and said, "Our army, especially Long Yu, has sent an urgent report. The 100,000 horses in our army have almost run out of fodder." In Yuzhou, the garrison in Chang'an, Jiannan province, and other places have also encountered the same problem. The locusts are wreaking havoc. Everything with a bit of green has been gnawed away. What's more, it's the season to fatten up the horses. But Cheng Yaojin didn't say anything. But how could Li Shimin not understand? If things went on like this, sooner or later, all the livestock in the Tang dynasty would starve to death because of the lack of fodder. What was more terrifying was that there would be no war horses left in the army. Emperor! Zhang Sun hesitated for a moment. Li Shimin frowned. Speak! Tubo and Tuyuhun sent news that in 5 days, the first batch of livestock will be delivered to the Tang dynasty from Hazhou, Yazhou, and other places in Jiannan province. There will also be some in Longyu province. But the current situation, how much? Li Shimin had a headache. He had thought of everything, but everyone ignored that the locusts had not only gnawed away the Zhuang family, but also the grass and leaves. The livestock were easy to get, but how could they be raised? They couldn't let the grass-eating animals eat locusts, could they? At this time, Xiao Gizi took a memorial from Zhang Sun Wuji and handed it to Li Shimin. Tuyuhun will deliver 58,300 warhorses, 37,000 cows, 59,000 bulls, 30,000 calves, 39,000 sheep, and pigs, chickens, ducks. Looking at the numbers one by one, Li Shimin felt a headache. This, without a doubt, was another source of pressure. They couldn't drive all the livestock to the south. Could they? Dear ministers, do you have any good ideas about this? Li Shimin rubbed his forehead and said, At this time, Your Majesty, I suggest that we don't accept these livestock for the time being. Otherwise, it will undoubtedly make the situation worse. Your Majesty, the sudden increase in cattle, sheep, pigs, chickens, and ducks is still fine. We can just distribute them to the local people, but the horses? Your Majesty, I mean that if these livestock come from Jiannan province, it's better to send them directly to the south. Now, the south is less affected by the locust plague. As for the livestock in Longyu province, let Longyu know how to raise them properly for the time being. When the time comes, we can collect a batch of fodder from the south to solve the problem. The ministers expressed their opinions one after another. At this time, no one sang a different tune. Because what did this mean? This represented the benefits they could gain. Moreover, they occupied a lot of fields in various places, and there must be a lot of fodder stored here. At this time, if these things were left behind, they would be the ones to benefit in the end. There were no fools here. Every single one of them was very clear. The benefits of this. After discussing for an hour, Li Shimin still couldn't find a suitable solution. Suddenly, he thought of a person in his mind. Perhaps that person would be able to resolve this matter perfectly. He also knew the benefits of this matter. If he did as these people said, wouldn't he get no benefits at all? All right, I already have a countermeasure for this matter. By the way, I have something to announce today. Li Shimin waved his hand. The ministers quieted down in an instant. Li Shimin said slowly, "The order of the imperial court has been following the old system of the previous dynasty since the reign of the retired emperor, and there has been no change. Therefore, I want to announce today that I will make a slight correction to the original system." Chapter 380. Everyone was aghast. Although the improvement of the system was indeed coordinated by the Emperor, the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Personnel, and other departments, why did it happen today? And why didn't they hear anything about it before? What did it mean? Could it be that this was one of the Emperor's methods after he decided to take sides against the locust plague? Everyone was smart enough to know something. They had thought about the reform a long time ago, but they didn't expect it to happen today. Du Ruhui, tell us about the relevant system. After all, it was you and Zhang Sun who made the decision together. Yes. Zhang Sun was confused. What does it have to do with me? But it was obvious that the Emperor was dragging him down, so he could only bow his hands and say yes. Then, Zhang Sun Wuji spoke first. Your Majesty, although the system in the imperial court has always been perfect, this old official feels that there are still many flaws in it. Therefore, this old official worked with the Ministry of Personnel to perfect it. Official Du, please come and explain the relevant situation on behalf of the Emperor and the other officials. Zhang Sun Wuji kicked the problem to Du Ruhui again. Du Ruhui leisurely took out a memorial from his bosom and said, "In view of the fact that there are many idle positions in the treasury of Chang'an City and other affairs, or many of them are directly related to each other but no one is in charge of them. At this time, the Tang Empire is just starting to develop in all aspects. Therefore, His Majesty has discussed this matter with me and others and deliberated about it. First, there are too many idle positions, which leads to delays in the daily affairs of the government in various departments, especially in the case of the Chang'an local treasury last time. It was a small matter, but it delayed for half a year. What if it was in other places? So, in order to improve the system in the court, we made a series of system updates. Second, there are many things waiting to be done in the Tang dynasty. Look at the emperor's boots. They are all sewn by Empress Zhang Sun. Why? Does the emperor lack money for a pair of boots? No. He was trying to save money. Moreover, the amount of money spent every month on idle jobs in the imperial court is thousands of strings of cash. If this kind of practice continues and everyone is like this, then who will carry out the government affairs? That's why I, the emperor, and Lord Zhang Sun, the minister of the Ministry of Justice, worked together to update the court system. After saying that, only then did Du Ruhui recite the reward and punishment system that he had previously set up in the imperial court. Everyone was dumbfounded. No one was a fool. This was definitely something Du Ruhui would do. But what was the meaning of this Du Ruhui? Do you think everyone is too idle right now? Wasn't this forcing them to their deaths? Everyone was shocked. But when she took a closer look, the emperor was indeed wearing the shoes sewn by Empress Zhang Sun. Even the dragon robe on his body showed signs of being mended. How could this be fake? At this time, if anyone dared to say no, they would be punished. Then, if the emperor took off the mending on his clothes, who would say anything? Although everyone was dissatisfied, they didn't dare to say anything now. This was a typical case of giving a sweet date and then giving a heavy blow. Who dared to say anything? Li Shimin carefully observed everyone's expressions and then said slowly, I know that once new things are introduced, many people will definitely feel that it is not good. Today, in the imperial court, if we feel that something is not good, we will solve it in court, okay? If anyone has a different opinion, you can raise it. But who dared to say anything? At this time, even if they were dissatisfied, they would have to wait until later. But at this time, however, Wei Zheng spoke up. Your Majesty, I have something to ask. Speak. Your Majesty, I am slow-witted. I don't know what the reward and punishment system means. Li Shimin touched his chin and said, Mr. Du, tell Prime Minister Wei. Yes, Your Majesty. Prime Minister Wei, to put it bluntly, this is no different from the previous system. However, just like how we handle government affairs every day, if everyone registers their names as if they are attending morning court, then it will be clear at a glance who is here and who is not. Moreover, after being sent back to the Supreme Court for sorting, it will become a record. The advantage of this is that Your Majesty will know at any time who is on duty, what they are doing, who is not coming, and what they are doing. In this way, it can ensure that every order from Your Majesty will be delivered to the officials on time. With several people echoing each other, everyone finally understood. This thing was actually a test. Although the Emperor added rewards and punishments, if one did not show up for duty without a reason, he would be fined 1 month of salary. If it was the 4th time, he would be directly demoted by 1 rank. Wasn't this too strict? But what about the rewards? If one signed in every month, he would get an extra half a month of salary. What the hell was this? If one could be on duty every month, he would get bonus points on his political achievements. If there was a fat job, he would be given priority. What the hell was this? Wasn't this too much of a scam? At this time, everyone only felt the pressure. If they were to be like before, they would go drinking after a fight. Those days were gone forever. Now, in everyone's position, who didn't have bloodshot eyes? Once such a thing happened, the fine was a small matter. Losing their job was the real deal. Especially if there was a fat job. Where would this fat job come from? Wasn't it the position of everyone? Didn't this mean that now everyone's buttocks were sitting on the edge of a knife? Once they didn't pay attention, they would be finished? Everyone cried in their hearts. But who dared to say anything? They could only grit their teeth and accept it. Chapter 381. Thus, the court session ended in a dull manner. Although the court session was over, the problem was still in front of Li Shimin. That was the matter of animal husbandry. If this matter was not handled well, not only would all the animals and horses of the Tang dynasty be destroyed because of this matter. What would happen if a war broke out at that time? The Tang dynasty would no longer have a warhorse to use. There would be no cavalry to contend with the Turks. Imperial study. Li Shimin looked at the barren land outside the window with a worried face. It was supposed to be midsummer, but now? There was nothing but dead branches and leaves. Second brother, are you worried about the locusts again? Zhang Sun Wu Go fanned Li Shimin from behind and asked. Sigh. Guanyin maid, tell me. Now, although the matter of these damned locusts is basically solved and we have food, we forgot to store the fodder. Who would have thought that this plague of locusts would be so serious? And that brother Zhangfeng is really too much. He didn't explain the matter clearly. Don't say that, Guanyin maid. Li Shimin shook his head and grabbed Zhang Sun Wu Go's slender hand. At that time, brother Zhangfeng did say it, but we underestimated this plague of locusts too much, so we were indecisive. Back then, if I had listened to him and gathered all the chickens, ducks and pigs, and placed them in Long Yu, then the problem right now would absolutely not be so serious. Right now, even if I wanted to gather chickens and ducks on a large scale, it would be very difficult. Zhang Sun Wu Go pouted and said, then why didn't you only ask for chickens and ducks when you confronted Tubo and the other countries last time? Pigs? Do you think they are stupid? Li Shimin Wu Go tapped Zhang Sun Wu Go's forehead. At that time, if we had made a wrong expression, we might have failed last time, let alone asking for chickens, ducks and pigs. Once we said that, believe it or not, they would definitely not give us one. And they will be able to come up with a solution to the locust plague in a short time. Zhang Sun Wu Go bit her lips and thought for a while. She couldn't help but exclaim, second brother, you mean to borrow a chicken to lay eggs? Use their chickens, ducks and pigs to deal with the locusts in the Tang dynasty, and then send the news back to them. Then we can openly use this matter too. Yes. Li Shimin nodded approvingly. But the key problem now is that no one knows how long this plague of locusts will last, not to mention next year's plague. Once that happens then, Your Majesty, Prime Minister Wei requests an audience. At this moment, little Gizi's voice hurriedly sounded outside the imperial study. Li Shimin frowned slightly. Declare. Zhang Sun Wu Go struggled free from Li Shimin's hands. Then I'll take my leave first. As they spoke, Zhang Sun and Wu Go left when Wei Zhang and the others entered the imperial study.
Your subjects pay respects to your majesty. Get up, Li Shimin said sleepily.
What's the matter? Your majesty, we are here for the livestock matter. This matter is far more serious than what Lord Lu said in today's morning court. Just now, we personally sent people to Chang'an City to take a look outside Chang'an City. The area around Longzhou Mountain and Shirley Slope outside Chang'an City were originally lush and green, but now, apart from bare tree trunks and rotten leaves, there is nothing else. And all the cattle and sheep are so hungry that they are only skin and bones. If we don't deal with them, then have you come up with any ideas? Li Shimin interrupted Wei Zhang and the others and asked. This? Wei Zhang hesitated. Now there are only two ways. One is to immediately start the operation to eliminate the locusts, and then gather all the cattle and sheep to the south. Then, send people 800 miles away and let the prefectures in the south immediately transfer the hay. Chang Yaojin sighed with a bitter face and said, the livestock of the people outside Chang'an City are already like this. Your Majesty, the situation in the military camp is even worse. Then what do you want me to do? Do you want me to let the grass rain from the sky? Li Shimin was angry. He waved his hand lightly. Immediately distribute a large batch of bone-strengthening powder and let people spread the news within 3 days. At the same time, be sure to let all the royal businesses and the industries of the courtiers start to gather and purchase locusts. Then, let the local soldiers cooperate with the local government office to start the 3-pronged control of the plague of locusts according to the previous method. Li Shimin was annoyed. But at this time, the matter could not be delayed. If it was delayed, it would only make the people more panicky. Only by diverting the people's attention and making them focus on one place could this plague of locusts not go wrong. By the way, Chang Yaojin, what about the matter I ordered you to investigate? Chang Yaojin hurriedly said, there is indeed a plague of locusts in the Turkic territory, and it is extremely disastrous. It seems that all the tribes are annexing and robbing each other of their resources. Have you found out that they have dealings with Tubo and other countries? Not yet. Li Shimin frowned and thought for a while. Then, have you spread the news to the Turkic people? Yes, I have. Good. Then for now, put everything aside and be sure to focus all your energy on the Turkic people. If there is any movement in the Turkic people, report it immediately. As you wish. Chapter 382. Following Li Shimin's order. In Chang'an City. Under this order, in all the hidden corners, it was either the talkative woman, the idle beggar, the wanderer, the street wanderer, or even the storyteller and the fake Taoist priest who read palms. At this moment, all of them entered a secret chamber in a corner where no one was around. In the secret room. Feng Ai looked at them coldly. The moment they entered the room, they were no longer the same as they were outside. Everyone had a general name. That was the Department of Foreign Affairs of the Ministry of Justice. Greetings, Minister. Get up. Feng Ai said lightly. There's a new task today. It's a secret order from the Emperor. Hearing this, everyone hurriedly knelt on the ground respectfully. There's only one thing today, and that is, no matter what method you use, you must spread the news that the locusts are the bone-strengthening powder throughout Chang, and within 3 days. If anyone doubts or creates rumors, immediately lock down this person, trace all the information of this person, and then report back to me as usual. Yes. Minister, are these locusts really the raw material of the bone-strengthening powder? A man who looked like an old Taoist asked out of turn. A flash of impatience flashed across Wei Shuyu's face. Think more about the locust's eggs. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Yes. Hearing this, the old Taoist broke out in a cold sweat all over. Seeing that Wei Shuyu didn't say anything else, they hurriedly left the room. Only then did everyone heave a deep sigh of relief. They didn't communicate at all. Then, like strangers, they hurriedly converged into the streets and disappeared into the crowd. The next moment. In Chang'an City, a shocking news spread like wildfire. In the treasury, someone mistakenly mistook the bone-strengthening powder for porridge at the place where the disaster relief is distributed. As soon as the news came out, everyone was shocked. They all rushed into the treasury. Even those who were hiding at home and didn't dare to go out hurriedly took things like dustpans and hurriedly went out after hearing this. Not for anything else, but because this thing was said to be a good thing that could strengthen the young and kidney, and also make people immune to all kinds of diseases. What did all the people want? Wasn't it just a hope that there would be no illness or disaster? Furthermore, this item was an auspicious item bestowed by the heavens. For such a beautiful item to unexpectedly flow out of the treasury, how could this not be a pleasant surprise? Quick! Let's go to the treasury. Something happened to the treasury. Isn't the granary in the treasury opening to release grain? Someone is selling 3 bags of bone-strengthening powder mixed in grain as flour. What? There's such a good thing? Let's go and take a look. The news spread faster and faster. In less than an hour, all the people in Chang'an City knew about it. In the end, even Zhang Feng heard about it. The old scholar looked at Zhang Feng strangely and asked, "Fengzi, tell me honestly, where did you get the bone-strengthening powder you gave me before?" Old man may be old, but he still has a brain. At this time, the news of the bone-strengthening powder had just come out from the treasury, and you had already gotten it 3 days ago. Could it be that you were the one who made this thing up? You and the emperor. Shoo! Zhang Feng put a finger to his lips and gestured for him to keep quiet. He was not afraid of anything except for this old guy's wild guess. This guy had seen the world, so he could fool other people, but he could not fool the old scholar. Old scholar, you actually know about this matter. Don't I know those stubborn guys before? Didn't you tell me to stay away from them? Zhang Feng spread his hands. That's a little difficult. Although these guys are sloppy all day, their nature is not bad. Moreover, these guys' fathers know me, and we even call each other brothers. They are businessmen, so which one of them doesn't know the officials? So I'm lazy, so I cooperated with them on this business. Hey! The old scholar was furious. You prodigal son, do you know that this bone-strengthening powder is a chance for your Zhang clan to rise again in at most 1 year? Don't you want to contribute this thing to the emperor? Maybe the emperor will be happy and give you an official position. At that time, won't you be able to bring honor to your family? You wastrel! Old man is so angry. The old scholar was so angry that his beard was trembling. He had eaten 3 kilograms of this bone-strengthening powder. He believed that in Chang'an City, apart from himself, Granny Wang, Zhang Feng's future father-in-law, and the neighbors, they were the first to enjoy such a good thing. This thing could make one rich overnight. You wastrel, how could you give it to others just like that? Isn't it better to ask your father-in-law? Everyone knows the principle of keeping the goodies within the family. You idiot, don't you understand this principle? The old scholar was so angry. He wanted to slap this wastrel to death. But now that he had given it to him, what else could he say? Zhang Feng was also listless. Being pointed at by the old scholar and yelled at, he was also a bit annoyed. But he was afraid that if he told the old scholar about his plan, his heart would explode and he would die on the spot. So, he gritted his teeth and endured it. Old Shotsai, there are some things that are not what you think. This business is easy, but if you don't know how to operate it, you will only bring death to yourself. So, you don't have to worry about this matter. Chapter 383. The old elementary scholar was stubborn. He had been stubborn his whole life. In Zhang Feng's heart, he had the same strength of character as Tao Yuanming, but he, Zhang Feng, could not do the same. In this world, he only knew that too much strength was easy to break. He had indeed thought of monopolizing this business, but if that happened, he would not be able to eat or sleep in peace. In the face of such huge profits, many people would take risks out of desperation. Even though it would attract the attention of the emperor, at that time, it would arouse killing intent and jealousy. He could not understand the emperor's intentions, because what he could think of, the emperor could also think of. If that happened, therefore, Zhang Feng did not dare to take the risk. He could not afford to take the risk. Old Shotsai, I know what you mean, but the raw materials for this thing are things that ordinary people like us can't get our hands on. They are all controlled by the government. If you don't have a good relationship with the government, then you won't even know how you died. Don't talk about making money. This is equivalent to throwing away your life. I know the benefits of this thing. No one knows it better than me, But this is something we cannot be greedy for. Once we are greedy, then when the time comes, we will not be able to repay our debts. Look at me now. I don't have to worry about anything now, and when the time comes, I will be able to sit back and reap the benefits. Who can compare to such a good thing? That's why, old elementary scholar, the world has changed. There are some things that can't be measured by common sense or the things in books. Zhang Feng poured a bowl of wine for the old elementary scholar. The old elementary scholar did not drink. Instead, he stood up woodenly, his mouth mumbling something. He slowly walked away. Zhang Feng knew that what he said was a huge blow to the old elementary scholar, who worshipped the sages and the teachings of Confucius and Mencius. But in this life, he had lived in the proud bones of the books. How could the emperor not know of his existence? The emperor did not say anything because he did not want to argue with an old man. But once he entered the imperial court one day, then the old elementary scholar's character would change. Then, at that time, not only would the old elementary scholar be unlucky, but he would also be unlucky. Therefore, Zhang Feng might as well at this time unravel this layer of confusion for the old elementary scholar. Let him see this reality clearly. Just as the old scholar was about to leave, Chang'an City was also in chaos. The cause of the incident was a shocking piece of news that came from a tea house in Shi City. Blind Wang was still sitting steadily in his exclusive seat. Everyone in the tea house stared at him as he slowly sipped his tea. Some of the more impatient ones were already clenching their teacups tightly. Just as everyone was about to lose their patience, Blind Wang slammed his gavel and said, "Everyone, listen up. Today, our Blind Wang will not be long-winded. Let's talk about the bone-strengthening powder that came out of the vault." When the crowd saw Blind Wang going straight to the point, they couldn't help but get excited. "Blind Wang, tell me, what's the deal with this bone-strengthening powder? I saw Kong Dingfeng's Zhang Tufu. A few days ago he was still using crutches, but yesterday I heard that he made some bone-strengthening powder and ate a big bowl of it. This morning he actually threw away his crutches. Is this true? Is the bone-strengthening powder really that magical? That Zhang Tufu is already 83 years old this year. But this morning he's even more energetic than us young men. He can even carry a bucket of water and show off in Chang'an City. Is this the effect of that bowl of bone-strengthening powder? God, is this true? Does that bone-strengthening powder really have the effect of rejuvenating one's youth?" The crowd was in an uproar. Blind Wang smiled and stroked his beard, nodding from time to time. When the crowd was arguing, Blind Wang said slowly, "Everyone, that bone-strengthening powder doesn't have the effect of rejuvenating one's youth. I've already said this before. The reason is that this bone-strengthening powder, as the name suggests, is really something. Think about it. Why is it called bone-strengthening powder? Why?" The crowd stared with their eyes wide open. Because this thing is originally used to strengthen the bones. It's used to strengthen the muscles and bones. That Zhang Tufu grew up with us in the early years. Don't you think that old man doesn't know him? He's as strong as a bull. When he's old, his body will be weak. But once he's nourished by this thing, although he can't be compared to a young man, he's still much stronger than us. So, don't believe the rumors. This bone-strengthening powder. Blind Wang, you're really talking nonsense. At this moment, someone on the third floor, which belonged to the rich and powerful, said contemptuously, instantly interrupting the crowd. The middle-aged man slowly waved his folding fan and said, "I've heard rumors from the imperial physicians that this thing can strengthen the muscles and bones. It can also nourish the yin and yang. Most importantly, it can nourish the kidneys and strengthen the yang. You all know my father, right? Minister Zhua of the Guanglu Temple." When the crowd heard this, they couldn't help but stare. This was a master. And he knew something that the crowd didn't know. If he could stand up and speak, it meant that this matter was in the bag. Nourishing the yin and yang, it could also strengthen the bones and the kidneys. Most importantly, it could strengthen the yang. At this moment, the man glanced at Blind Wang from the corner of his eye and nodded. "Did you all know? My father took in a concubine yesterday. And it's that coquettish lady. My father is already 75 years old." "What? Minister Zhua Chao took in a concubine? Damn! This Minister Zhua, is what you said true?" This thing is really so magical? Chapter 384. No! This young master is also using this thing. And it's not just me. All of the officials in the court are using it. As for the effect, I used to do it 3 times a night, but after eating this thing, I can do it 5 times a night without blushing or panting. This is a must for a man. Hiss. Everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. That worked. All the nobles in the court were using it? Everyone went crazy. Many of them could not even sit still. It was crazy. They ran away like crazy. They only had one goal. That was to go to the treasury. Even if they had to spend all their money, they had to buy some. This thing. If there was only this little, even if they did not use it, the price would definitely be the same as the locust's eggs. The price would increase by several times. This was the people of Guangzhou. They were all shrewd in their bones. Once they heard that all the nobles in the court were using it, how could it be wrong? Regardless of whether it was good or bad, they had to get it first. When the people arrived at the treasury without stopping, they were so scared that their legs went soft when they saw the people at the entrance of the treasury. They saw that almost all the people of Chang'an City had arrived at the entrance of the treasury. And at the entrance of the treasury, there was a sold-out sign. This time, all the people who had just arrived were in an uproar. F***CK. What's going on? It's gone? F***CK. What's going on? No. Since there are 3 sacks in the treasury, it means that he has a lot of this thing. That's right. When everyone heard that, their eyes could not help but light up. Could it be that the treasury wants to fill their own pockets and not sell it to us? F***CK. Is there still law? Is there still law? No. Boys, let's turn his stall upside down. I don't believe that he and the person in charge of the treasury won't come out and give us an explanation. Yes. F***CK. These cowards think that we can just hang a broken sign and be done with it? Come. Let them see how powerful the people of Guangzhou are. The people at the treasury were also anxious. Why did the acting suddenly change? The manager of the treasury hurriedly sent someone to the palace to inquire. Under the strong pressure, the manager of the treasury gritted his teeth and took out a sack of bone-strengthening powder. He divided it into countless small porcelain bottles and then slowly said, "Everyone, silence. This official knows that all of you want to buy this thing. But this thing is really gone, and there is no such thing in the palace now. This is the last bit that I asked someone to bring out from the palace. Therefore I had no choice but to do this. After all, the cost of this thing is also there. This kind of divine item can't be as ordinary as that, right?" However, no matter what he said about having a battle of words, that was all he said. Was that all? It would be strange if they weren't fools. "My lord, you said that this is a divine item, and we can't be picky about that. But you're being unfair. Since you're doing business with us, are you looking down on us because we have less money?" "That's right, my lord. Look at the people in front. They've already bought so much. Why are there only a few bottles and jars left? What's the use of this little bit? My lord, are you selling this thing? Or giving it away? Are you still selling it in the future?" "That's right, my lord. You can't be playing dumb with us. How can you act like a little wife when you're doing business with us? Aren't you ashamed?" The manager of the treasury panicked. He was sweating profusely. But what could he do? Although the higher-ups said that no matter what happened, he had to forcibly suppress it. After today, everything would be solved. But how could he suppress this situation? He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to survive tonight. These people would tear him apart alive. Even his family's aunts and uncles would have to have their legs broken by him. He couldn't help but wipe the sweat on his forehead and said, "Everyone, I'm just a gatekeeper. This bone-strengthening powder, if you don't believe me, you can go into the treasury and look for it yourself. As long as you can find it, I'll give it to you as much as you can find. Is that okay? There's really no more. If there was, why would I be so stingy?" Everyone in the treasury was having a headache now. They had originally planned to keep a bag of it. This thing was a great tonic. When the time came, they could bring some back for their parents, wives, and children to eat together.
Wouldn't that be great? But now, it depended on the situation. If they didn't clear up this matter today, they would die when they went back tonight. What should they do now? Everyone was worried. And those commoners naturally didn't believe the words of the manager of the treasury. Since he had let them in, if they didn't go in, wouldn't they be letting him down? Brothers, let's go. No one's going in? Let's go in and see if this Wang Quanen is telling the truth. In the crowd, an old man raised his walking stick shakily and rushed forward angrily. When the manager of the treasury named Wang Quanen saw the old man, he instantly withered. He cried miserably and shouted, "Father-in-law, your son-in-law is on duty, you scram! You wastrel!" The old man was fine if he didn't listen, but when he heard, he exploded in anger. He raised his walking stick and gave him a beating. "This is such a good thing. Why don't you buy some for your father? Are you still my son-in-law? I'll beat you to death, you wastrel!" If anyone does, they'll be beheaded. Zhang Sun Wuji instantly understood what the emperor meant. He cupped his fists and left. An hour later, a rumor suddenly spread in Chang'an City. His Majesty empathizes with the common people and is willing to open the national treasury and take out the silver to cure the plague of locusts. 1 stone locust in exchange for by 1 qian. As soon as these two pieces of news came out, it instantly overshadowed the matter of the bone-strengthening powder. After all, although the bone-strengthening powder was good, it was scarce. Now, everyone relied on the heavens to make a living. These damned locusts had eaten up all the food they needed to feed their families. At this time, not to mention money, as long as they were given a bowl of porridge, the common people would be very willing to eliminate the locusts. After all, the emperor did this out of consideration for the common people. Now, if anyone dared to sit on the ground and take a nap, they would be instantly drowned by the saliva of the locusts. You're shameless. Now that the Tang dynasty is in danger, the emperor doesn't want anything and is freely giving out money just to eliminate the locusts and earn a living for us. Are you *king better off than the emperor? The men in Guangzhou are really brave. Who can withstand this kind of provocation? After a while, all the common people with red eyes held carrying poles, hammers, and even dustpans. Moreover, there were old men who used bamboo strips to weave a circle and weaved spider webs from the corner of the house. Then they stuck or tied the webs to a long bamboo pole or a long stick and set off. Needless to say, this method was really useful. As long as the webs were waved, they would be instantly covered in them. They would knock against the bucket and fall down. This was something that the emperor wanted, so no one dared to be careless. If a locust or grasshopper got dirty, they would wipe it with their clothes. If anyone dared to be unclean, they would be stained with spider webs, and they would instantly be covered with spittle that should cover the ground. Just like that. From the common people to the servants of the rich families, and then to the rich families, no one could sit still. Although everyone kept saying that they didn't want money, when their chests were bulging with copper coins or silver notes, everyone was laughing so hard that they couldn't even see their eyes. How could those merchants who had been locked in their houses by the locusts sit still? They were bare-chested and wearing their hair. They chanted songs and struck gongs in their yards, fields, and even on the streets of Chang'an. Some rich people even took out nets used for fishing. Each of them held one end of the nets and then rode on the mules to run wildly in Chang'an. When the crowd saw this, they were instantly stunned by the locusts that weighed hundreds or even thousands of pounds. They also learned to run home after throwing away their things. No net? What's the use of the mosquito net? If it doesn't work, we can tie the pipes together with ropes and tie them to the bamboo poles. Won't that make a net? Now, after seeing what the emperor did, those officials couldn't sit still. They shouted with red eyes. Come on! Look at the people of Chang'an who are so enthusiastic about catching locusts. Aren't you ashamed? Come on. Enclose this place for me. This place belongs to our mansion. Come on. Since Lord Zhang dares to enclose this place, let's do it too. The locusts on this hill belong to me. At this moment, Chang Yaojin's wife leisurely carried a basket and stared at the crowd and shouted. In an instant, all the officials touched their noses and left as if they had said nothing. They dared to scold Chang Yaojin, but they didn't dare to provoke this shrew.
Chapter 386. On Longzhou Mountain outside Chang'an City. Li Changqian rode a white horse and stood at the top of the mountain. He looked down at the sea of people and sighed with emotion. No one in the world dared to disobey an order. This was the demeanor an emperor should have. This was his father's way of doing things. Since he had been in contact with Zhang Feng for a long time, he could see the unfathomable abyss in Zhang Feng. He had a feeling that if Zhang Feng really taught them the skills he once said, what would the Tang dynasty be like at that time? He didn't dare to think about it. From everything that happened now, he saw a feeling that made it difficult for him to sleep. Especially the mental arithmetic, as well as the mysterious division, as well as the mysterious sutra that he had never mentioned, as well as the physics and so on. Although he didn't know what it was, Li Changqian understood that it wasn't that Zhang Feng didn't want to teach it, nor that his father didn't want to learn it, but that his father thought they were old. On the other hand, they weren't qualified now. In other words, they weren't qualified. This feeling was very strange and uncomfortable. However, during this period of time, Li Changqian understood the profoundness of the division. Even Master Yuan Tiangang couldn't completely recite the division within 10 after seeing it. Li Changqian could recite it now. How could this not make him feel complacent? Even this morning, he went to show off in front of his father and mother. After hearing the division within 10 digits from his father, he was terrified. He finally knew the gap between them. Changqian, isn't it time to light the beacon? Just as Li Changqian was letting his imagination run wild, Cheng Chimo looked at a small yellow door rushing over and asked. He only showed it to Li Changqian. When Li Changqian saw the small yellow door rushing over on the mountain path, he waved his hand lightly. Light the beacon. After receiving the order, Cheng Chimo waved his hand in a very flirtatious manner. Light the beacon. Light the beacon. Prepare the herbs. Quickly check the herbs and fodder. Are you all deaf? Get moving for Lao Tzu. Quick, quick, quick. Who the hell are you? What the hell do you want to do? Get out of the beacon tower for Lao Tzu. Is it cool there? Amidst the clamor of preparation and angry shouts, all the beacon towers were ready, and there was even a group of soldiers with torches in their hands, waiting in front of the beacon towers. At this moment, the small yellow door finally arrived at the peak of the mountain. As soon as he reached the top of the mountain, he hurriedly shouted, "The Emperor has given the order. When the bell rings, light the beacons." Thump, thump, thump. Just as the yellow door's voice faded away, the bell of the Huaxing Temple rang. Li Changqian took a deep breath and urged his horse forward. He took the torch from Cheng Chimo's hand, then raised it high and shouted, "Today, the beacons are not because of an emergency military situation, but because it concerns the survival of all the people of the Tang dynasty. You all saw the fodder. It's not smoke, but the herbs we've all seen before. Do you know what we're doing? Kill the locusts. Kill the locusts. Kill the locusts." All the soldiers raised their torches, weapons, and even flags, and roared. Most of them were the people around Chang'an City, and many of them were even from Chang'an City. When the locust plague broke out, everyone was tortured and exhausted. Everyone had encountered the plague of locusts, and no one dared to experience that kind of horror again. But now, the emperor actually contacted the heavens and got the prescription to kill the locusts. What was this? This was for the benefit of the people. Who dared not to do it? So, at this moment, all the soldiers roared excitedly. At this moment, the bell slowly rang for the 9th time. Dong. The moment the bell rang, a voice rang out. Li Changqian raised the torch high and pulled the reins. The white horse seemed to feel something, and raised its front hooves and neighed. Light the fire. Li Changqian ordered. The torch in his hand was thrown fiercely into the tung oil that had been poured on the beacon tower. Bas! Dozens of torches were thrown out at the same time. The 5 beacon towers on Longzhou Mountain were lit in an instant. The raging gray smoke was blown slowly in the direction of Chang'an City with the wind. At this moment, Yuchi Baolin, who had been waiting on the beacon tower of the imperial city, saw the first beacon on Longzhou Mountain, and suddenly pulled out his sword and roared, "Sound the drums, light the fire!" Dong! Woo! 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 Along with the sound of the drums, the horn to charge was also blown. At this moment, the 24 beacon towers above the imperial city lit up the beacon fire at the same time. And the people inside and outside Chang'an City all stopped at this moment. Everyone stared blankly at the thick smoke in the sky. They had already seen this on the notice. But they didn't expect that the emperor would be so generous this time. Even when Shelly came, he didn't light up the beacon fire like this, and didn't ring the bell 9 times. But now, the emperor actually rang the bell 9 times in order to kill the locusts. What was this? Everyone choked with sobs. They all looked at the direction of the imperial city with red eyes, and knelt down and shouted themselves hoarse. Long live the emperor! Long live the emperor! Long live the emperor! Chapter 387. Zhang Feng looked up at the smoke floating in the sky. He could smell the strong smell of medicinal herbs in the air. He could not help but breathe a deep sigh of relief. This thing was really created. He did not know what skills Lao Li and the others had used, or was it the research of the emperor and son Simiao? After all, the Imperial Institute of Medicine of the Tang dynasty was not to be trifled with. There were many capable people, and son Simiao was there as well. How could they, who played with medicinal herbs all day long, not know what he knew? Zhang Feng shook his head. He focused on the tricycle in his hand again. The carriage of the tricycle was still made of wooden planks. If it was made of iron, he would need an ox to pull it instead of a bicycle. The carriage was easy to make. The most practical material was cedar wood. It was cheap and light. The tricycle was not complicated. The most complicated part was the tire and the transmission chain. Zhang Feng used 10 days to make the entire transmission system using 5 large and small gears and a chain as thick as a thumb. He looked at the thick smoke in the sky. He looked at the rain-like locusts. Zhang Feng patted the seat of the tricycle and prepared to take it out for a walk. However, just as he took the tricycle to the street outside the shop, a discordant voice suddenly sounded behind him. Fengzi, what are you tinkering with? The voice naturally belonged to Cheng Chumo. At this time, Cheng Chumo, Li Chengqian, and Zhang Sun rushed over with their arms around each other's shoulders. They had just finished controlling the locusts, and they could not sit still anymore. They hurried over to Zhang Feng's place to have a drink. After all, there were too many things to do during this period of time, so they were so busy that they were almost paralyzed. Moreover, Li Chengqian came straight here after coming down from Mount Longsho. They discussed and formed a team. However, they did not know that Zhang Feng gave them a big surprise as soon as they met. Zhang Feng's face darkened when he heard that. It was impossible to hide the car now. When he turned around, the 3 of them had already surrounded the tricycle. They were touching it here and there. That damned Cheng Chumo actually lifted it up with one hand and smashed it heavily on the ground. Zhang Feng's eyelids twitched when he saw this. Hey bro, why are you guys here? Hey, wasn't this thing just finished? I haven't tasted your wine for a long time, so I missed it. Zhang Sun said to Cheng Chumo, who was about to overturn the tricycle. By the way, brother Zhang Feng, what is this? Li Chengqian pointed at the tricycle. Hey, I had nothing to do, so I tinkered with a cart for the past few days. Let's go, this isn't anything good. Tainyo, carry it into the shop. Let's drink. You guys came at the right time. I had nothing to do yesterday, so I went swimming in the river and caught a few carps that weighed 3 catties. Let's go. I'll give you guys an appetizer today. Cheng Chumo and Zhang Sun looked at Li Chengqian with a strange expression. Li Chengqian, on the other hand, walked in without blushing or panting. Although their father had ordered that no one was allowed to eat carps, who was Zhang Feng? He was their brother. Others couldn't eat carps, but Zhang Feng and his brother could. Not long after, Zhang Feng came out with a plate of pickled fish and a grill with burning charcoal. The grill emitted the spiciness of pepper and dogwood, plus the numbing taste of fresh peppercorns. It instantly filled everyone's mouth. How could they wait? When the dishes were placed on the table, they couldn't wait to dig in. Li Chengqian didn't eat. He pointed at the backyard behind the curtain and said, Brother, what is this? You haven't told me yet. Hey, this. Isn't this the improved handcart? Look. Zhang Feng took a bite of the fish head and simply hugged the fish head with his hands. He crossed his legs and said, That thing is actually just a handcart. There's nothing much to say. It's just that the oxen, horses, and mules pulling the cart were replaced by manpower. Manpower? In an instant, Their interest was aroused. Under Li Chengqian's signal, Cheng Chimo resentfully put down his chopsticks and carried the tricycle into the hall. Seeing this, Zhang Feng also knew that if he didn't explain clearly, these guys wouldn't give up. He simply put down the fish head, sat on the seat, and showed it to everyone in the hall. Everyone's eyes were fixed on it. Let's go, this is a divine tool for showing off. Brother, I didn't expect Feng Zi to be such a stubborn guy in his bones. Ha ha ha, let's go, let's stroll on the street. I guarantee that all the girls and wives in Chang'an City will be charmed. Get lost. Zhang Feng was anxious. This thing is just for transporting goods. What do you mean by a divine tool for showing off? Don't mess around. Lao Tzu spent a lot of money on this thing. No one is allowed to have any ideas about it. As he spoke, Zhang Feng pushed the tricycle to the backyard like it was a treasure. Li Chengqian knocked on the wine bowl. Cheng Chimo and Zhang Sun instantly understood. Didn't you not let us play with it? Is this what brothers are like? When Lao Tzu gets you drunk, you'll be more frivolous than anyone else. Chapter 388. Come. Brother, what are you talking about? We're brothers. Since this is Feng Zi's beloved item, how can we, as brothers, joke around with our beloved item? Come, I, Tai Nyo, will drink a cup as punishment. I'll also drink a cup as punishment. Li Gon, I was rude, brother. What do you mean by drinking a cup as punishment? We have to take a bowl. Don't you think so, Feng? Zhang Sun winked at him, causing Zhang Feng to have goosebumps all over his body. The three of them changed to wine bowls and gulped down a large bowl of wine. Only then did they pant and grab a handful of fish without using chopsticks and start gorging themselves. Oh right, Feng, are we brothers? He really ate a mouthful. Chen Tinyu was unhappy. He looked at Zhang Feng, who was eating the fish eyeballs with disgust. Zhang Feng was stunned. Yes, why? We're brothers. The three of us have already drunk. So why don't you drink? F*CK, you guys are F*King. F*King, didn't you guys want to drink? What does this have to do with me, Zhang Feng? If you want to drink, then drink. Lao Tzu doesn't drink. Zhang Feng turned around angrily. In terms of drinking, he definitely couldn't beat these cowards. These people grew up soaking in wine from a young age. How could they compare to them? They only needed 8 taels of wine to make him drunk. This was a big bowl. A big bowl was already half a caddy. How could he drink it? Moreover, these fools were holding 65% alcohol. He didn't dare to drink it. Sigh. I thought that Feng really treated us as brothers. It seems that I, Chong Zi, was thinking too much. Isn't that so? To think that we treated him as a brother and secretly went to the imperial plantation to get him a tiger. This is good, this, sigh. All right, if you don't want to drink, then don't drink. Let's go, it's too boring to drink. Tai Nyo, Swallow Descent Restaurant's arrangements? Let's go. As they spoke, the three of them were about to leave. How could Zhang Feng endure such provocation? Isn't it just drinking? Lao Tzu did not believe that Lao Tzu could not risk his life today. Enough. Stop F*King acting. Who do you think you are? Come, let Lao Tzu drink. Whoever doesn't drink it is a bastard. Zhang Feng finally couldn't help but explode. This group of bastards was really F*King infuriating. Not to mention them. Were they F*King going to the heavens? Fine. Since you want to drink, then. Zhang Feng didn't like that the wine jars on the table were all opened, so he directly took out a few jars of good wine from the wine cellar. However, this was something that he had prepared for everyone to drink. He had long known that this group of bastards would come to mess with him. The incident at Swallow Descent restaurant last time had left him with lingering fear. How could he do such a stupid thing again? When Zhang Feng came out of the wine cellar panting, the few of them looked at him with a playful expression. He had done something to these jars of wine. This group of people had learned to be shrewd. They had learned to read the numbers on the jars. This was incredible. How could Zhang Feng do it? This wine was taken out from the wine cellar. Other than himself, no one knew which jars had low alcohol content. I say, brother, this wine of yours,
Enough. Do you think I don't know you guys? I just brewed this wine and haven't processed it. Usually, I can't bear to drink it. Today, we are going to drink this wine that has just been brewed. Alright. Chung Chumo was overjoyed when he heard this. He hurriedly picked up a jar, opened the mud seal, and took a whiff of the fragrant wine. His entire person changed. When the few of them saw this, how could they still care about their manners? They were all drunkards. There was no need to pretend. Even Li Chengqian put down his identity as the crown prince. Like everyone else, he opened the mud seal and began to taste it. Good wine. Fengzi, you're not being kind. If you had such good wine, why didn't you take it out earlier? Come. Brothers, let's drink. Wait. However, at this moment, Chung Chumo smiled and held Zhang Feng's hand, saying, Brother, we're all brothers. Come. It's not satisfying to drink like this. Come, let's drink. This way, we can drink to our heart's content and increase the relationship between us brothers. How about it? Of course, Zhang Sun and Li Chengqian had nothing to say. They agreed with a clap, but Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. How could he not know what kind of wine this was? The wine that he could drink was definitely the wine from the last dish. It was basically like drinking cold water. The wine that Chang Tiniu and the others drank was more than 70 degrees. Then, it was over now. Zhang Feng regretted it very much. But how could he say anything now? He saw that damn Chen Tiniu raise his head and gulp down the wine. And it was the kind that didn't let go. He didn't spill a single drop on the ground. This scene made Zhang Feng's eyeballs almost pop out of their sockets. Come, it's your turn. Chung Chumo handed the jar of wine that originally belonged to Zhang Feng with a playful expression and said, What could Zhang Feng say? He closed his eyes and poured it into his stomach. Come on, I've been tricked. The key was that he couldn't say it. Just like that, a jar of wine, after a round of 4 people, was emptied. This was 2 caddies of wine. On average, each person had half a caddy of wine in their stomach. Even though this was the lowest amount of wine, it still made Zhang Feng a little dizzy. However, the horror was not over. That damn Chen Tiniu actually picked up the wine jar and drank it again. Brother, come. It's your turn. Chapter 389. What could Zhang Feng say? What could he say when he looked at the 3 pairs of eyes that were rolling around in front of him? Anything he said now would be an excuse. He could only grit his teeth and look at them as if he was going to die for justice. Brothers, let's drink. When the 3 of them saw this, they were overjoyed. They didn't even eat the dishes. Their eyes were wide open, and Zhang Sun Chong was even counting with his fingers. Don't ask why. They were all waiting for Zhang Feng to lie down. Zhang Feng couldn't drink. This was something they all knew. Every time they came to drink, getting Zhang Feng drunk was a basic action. If it wasn't Zhang Feng who got drunk that time, but one of them got drunk instead, it would be embarrassing if word got out. All of them had been drinking since young, so they were all veterans in the field of wine. Dong! Pa! The first sound. That was the sound of Zhang Feng falling on the table. The second sound was the sound of the wine jar falling to the ground. Fengzi? Hey! Fengzi, wake up. Your wife is here. Fengzi? Brother Zhang Feng? The 3 of them shook Zhang Feng tentatively. Seeing that Zhang Feng was drunk like a pig, they revealed a deep sense of ecstasy. Done. Tai Niu, carry Fengzi to the bed. Chongzi, go take that so-called tricycle out. I want to personally try this treasure. Yes. How could the 2 of them sit still? If it was something that Zhang Feng treasured so much, then it must be a real treasure. Since he didn't want to ride it? Fine. Lao Tzu will get you drunk. If you get drunk, won't what's yours be ours? Hee hee. The few of them quickly threw Zhang Feng on the bed. Chung Chumo even smacked Zhang Feng's butt and said, Fengzi, that tricycle of yours, we brothers will help you try it first. As they spoke, the 3 of them ordered their subordinates to squat in front of the door and guard it. Then the 3 of them pushed the cart and slipped away. As soon as he left Tong Hui Fong, Li Chengqian began to worry. The 3 of them squatted on the ground, looked at the tricycle and asked, Bug, do you still remember how Fengzi rode it? I seem to remember that Fengzi used his foot to step on this pedal,
and then the car moved? Chuemo, you're the strongest here. Why don't you try? Why me? You do it. Chung Chumo's eyes widened as he stared at this magical thing. He didn't know what to do. All right, if Lao Tzu wants to come, Lao Tzu will come. Zhang Sun also got excited and spat into my palm. Then, according to his memory of Zhang Feng, he sat on the tricycle and placed his foot on the pedals. But no matter what he did, the tricycle wouldn't move. This time, a few hundred people were offended. Chuemo, you motherfastrous cur, push Lao Tzu. Is this thing broken? Why isn't it moving? Let me try. Chung Chumo carried Zhang Sun and fiercely slapped his butt. Zhang Sun grimaced in pain. F***ck, you motherfastrous cur, Lao Tzu asked you to push, not slap. Do you think Lao Tzu is a horse? Oh! Chung Chumo shrunk his neck and hurriedly pushed the back of the tricycle forward with all his might. Needless to say, this thing really moved. This scene involuntarily caused the three of them to jump up and down in excitement like children. Li Chengqian was also excited. Bug, quickly step on it. Yes, quickly step on it. The faster you step on it, the faster it moves. Wait, you two wait. Help me up, I want to sit on it and experience it. Wait. Motherfastrous cur, I asked you two to stop. Seeing that he couldn't catch up with Chung Chumo and Zhang Sun, Li Chengqian became angry and directly shouted. Hearing this, the two of them awkwardly turned a corner on the street and stopped next to Li Chengqian. Sir, please get on the car. Only then did Li Chengqian put on an act of flinging his clothes and sitting in the carriage with a big prick. One person rode, one person pushed, and one person sat. And it was such a strange thing. And it was actually the two devil kings of Chong, and who came in person. Was this crazy? The people who were catching locusts in Chong'an City, as well as those rich people, were dumbfounded. Looking at the strange appearance of the three people, everyone was puzzled. I say, what's wrong with Devil Chen? Is he drunk? Yes, he must be drunk. Otherwise, damn this. Shoo. Are you crazy? How dare you talk about Devil Chen's ears? Don't you want your legs? F***ck. More importantly, what is that thing they are riding? Have any of you seen it before? I don't know. It's probably something good that the people from the Ministry of Works came up with again. The three of them were having fun. Everywhere they passed, everyone retreated. And those who knew the three of them felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Especially when they saw the Crown Prince, everyone's eyes were about to pop out. Oh my God! This is the Crown Prince? Lord Sun, I thought I saw wrong. Didn't the Crown Prince go to Mount Longsho to light the beacon? What's going on? I don't know. Forget it, let's report this quickly. At this time, Zhang Sun, Li Chengqian, and the other two people were also having fun under the influence of alcohol. Although this thing wasn't as practical as a horse, it wasn't as comfortable as a palanquin, and it required a lot of effort. However, this thing was really cool. Chung Chumo looked at Yen Lai restaurant in front of him, pointed and shouted angrily, Target Yen Lai restaurant, let's go! Chapter 390. Chong'an City was very lively that day. Under the effect of the fire beacon, the locusts fell down like rain. Everyone ran out to pick up the locusts, and Yen Lai restaurant was no exception, except for the noble singers. The rest, especially the lowly prostitutes, had long been driven out by the madam to make money. It had been almost half a month since the opening of Yen Lai restaurant. Yen Lai restaurant was extremely poor. This was a good thing that fell from the sky. Not making money now? When would they make money? Moreover, this was clean money. Who would dare to say anything? If that was the case, the procuress or the prostitutes would definitely spray their saliva all over that person's head and face. This was clean money. But at this time, how could the stubborn children of Chong'an City be absent from such a prosperous day? Although they didn't need to work, they could still drink and listen to music in Yen Lai restaurant. At the same time, there was also the delicate Hu Ji. Hugging her in their arms was very comfortable. They hadn't been out for a few days, and they had been bored to death. But at this time, cries of surprise rang out in front of Swallow Descent restaurant's door. All of the stubborn people sitting on the second floor couldn't help but become interested. They all turned their heads to look at Chang'an's main street. Even Jing Shu, who never left her house, was drawn in. On the main street, Cheng Chimo was riding on a strangely shaped thing. As he walked, he excitedly pulled out a large amount of money from his bosom and threw it into the crowd. Although Cheng Chimo, Li Chengqian, and the others had changed their names and even put on some makeup, there were still a few people who recognized them. At this time, the jaws of those who knew them were hanging on the ground, not to mention those who didn't know them. F***CK, what is Demon King Chen doing? Did his father beat him until he went crazy? Sigh. Damn the plague of locusts. At this time, another stubborn child looked up and sighed. This plague of locusts must have made Demon King Chen and Demon King Sun go crazy. Isn't that so? What else could it be? Ladies and gentlemen, do you know what that thing is under their crotch? I don't know, but isn't this thing a little too strenuous? If you have the skill, why don't you ride a horse? At the very least, a sedan chair only costs 10 copper coins. Do you think they don't have that? Crazy, this must be crazy, my God. Everyone couldn't help but wring their hands. However, there were also people who were excited. Everyone had been tortured to the brink of insanity by these 4 demon kings. Now that 2 of them had gone insane, everyone's chance had arrived. In the past, the 4 of them had set a rule. No matter how stubborn one was, no matter what he did, it would be fine. However, if one did something like snatching a girl or bullying the weak with a gun, the 4 of them would make one wish that one was dead. They had also set up a stubborn 10 rules. As long as one was a rich young master in Chang'an City, no matter who one was, they would have to memorize it. Otherwise, they would not even know how they became crippled. Moreover, the relationship between these 4 demon kings seemed to be very strong. Even if someone went to sue them, they would be finished the next day. Especially the one called Du Dabing, he will make you cry. Even if she didn't make you cry, she would drive you crazy. This person's strength was the most terrifying. He was one of the most terrifying people among the 4 demon kings. I'm Chen Tiniu. I once heard that when he was drunk, he carried a big stick and fought his way into the Zongjing Temple. The 3rd leg of the Zongjing Temple's supervisor was broken. However, the next day, this bastard could still walk on the street with a swagger. This matter was left unsettled just like that. This time, it was also the battle that made Demon King Chen famous. After this incident, who didn't know the names of the 4 demon kings? As long as they saw him on the street, they would definitely turn around and run away. At this time, looking at Demon King Chen's funny appearance, everyone tried hard to hold back their laughter. Someone couldn't help shouting, "Brother Chen! Brother Sun! What are you doing?" Brother Chen, Brother Sun, what are you guys sitting on? Yes. 3 masters, your mounts are quite strange. Can you tell us what it is? Ha ha ha. Everyone didn't know Li Chengqian. Because under normal circumstances, Li Chengqian couldn't casually leave the palace. His identity was there, so very few people knew him. Only occasionally would he come to Yen Lai Lu with Cheng Chumo and the others to sit for a while. It was very low-key. So it was normal that no one knew him. Cheng Chumo drove the car to the entrance of Swallow Descent restaurant in an incomparably flashy manner. Seeing that it was about to crash, Cheng Chumo fiercely pressed down on a metal plate. With a screech, the car skidded through the dirt and came to a steady stop in front of Swallow Descent restaurant. This is a new thing my brother came up with. Since he has nothing to do, brothers, let's help him try it. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but be surprised. Brother Chen, then this brother of yours. Don't ask what you shouldn't know. Cheng Chumo waved his hand coldly. Only then did the 3 of them enter Yen Lai restaurant. At this time, Li Chengqian's walking posture had changed. Most of the places in Chang'an City were paved with bluestone. The bottom of the car was made of hard wood. Although the section in front of Yen Lai restaurant was also made of bluestone, because of the flood last year, a lot of mud and sand had been washed up. No one cleaned it up, making it even more cratered. He seriously suspected that his butt had been split in half. But now was not the time to look. Moreover, there were people he knew. He could only endure the pain and wave his folding fan while smiling and cupping his fists at everyone. Chapter 391. The Arrival of the Three Patrons. Instantly, the brothel keeper became excited. She stopped picking up the money on the road. She scolded the crowd. "You bunch of blind cheese. Distinguished guests have arrived. What the *ck are you all doing? Why aren't you greeting the distinguished guests? Men, serve good tea. Chway, quickly bring out your newly arrived Huji sisters and give them to the three masters. Serve them well." She scolded the crowd. The brothel keeper shook her fat butt and bent over like a dog. She came to Li Chengqian's side and smiled brilliantly. She definitely knew Li Chengqian. Moreover, if she didn't know which family had a rich young master in Chang'an, then she wouldn't be qualified to be a brothel keeper in Yanlai restaurant. "This young master, please. Please take a seat upstairs. Yesterday, 30 Huji came from the western region. Among them, 9 of them are stunning beauties. I've already prepared them for you. Then I'll have to trouble you." Li Chengqian nodded and went upstairs without even looking back. When Cheng Chimo and Zhang Sun saw Li Chengqian turn around, their eyes immediately turned red. They grabbed the brothel keeper's collar and asked in a low voice, "Are you telling the truth?" The brothel keeper was so scared that her face turned ashen. "Two young dukes, even if we have great abilities, we wouldn't dare to deceive that master." "Ha ha ha. That's good, that's good. Come, look at the reward. Today, this master is happy. All the expenses of Yanlai restaurant will be on me. Chantiniu." "Ha ha ha. Good. Then, many thanks to Brother Chen and Brother Sun. Come. Brothel keeper, bring wine. Bring us 2 of those Huji from the western region. We won't forget the reward." Everyone was stubborn, so naturally, those who had too much money had nowhere to spend it. Seeing Cheng Chimo and the others take out gold ingots and throw them away, it was destined that he must have gone crazy from holding back his money. Everyone was excited. In their excitement, they also grabbed a bunch of money and threw it down. Cheng Chimo was indeed going crazy from holding it in. Previously, the procuress had always been on guard against them. But today was different from when Li Chengqian came. Such rare goods were really plentiful. Cheng Chimo and Zhang Sun were overjoyed. They threw out a handful of banknotes from their pockets. The eyes of a certain type of woman turned red. They rushed forward to snatch it. The brothel keeper's hands trembled as she held 2 gold ingots. Her smile was as brilliant as a flower. Second floor. Spring Pavilion. Under the instructions of the procuress and the pimp, in less than 10 minutes, everything looked brand new. Even the teacups and chairs were replaced with new ones. As soon as he entered, he saw 10 pretty ladies standing on both sides of the door. When they saw the 3 of them, they greeted them as young masters. That voice made the 3 of them weak in the knees. "Well, since Brother Chen is treating us today, why don't we let that Jingshu girl play a song?" At this moment, it was unknown which idiot had shouted out loud. In an instant, the entire Swallow Descent restaurant quieted down. Even the procuress's hands trembled, and the 2 gold ingots in her hands fell to the ground. Silence. There was a deathly silence. It was as if someone had pressed the pause button. Everyone stared at the person who just spoke as if they had seen a ghost. That person was also dumbfounded. What's wrong? What's wrong with everyone? Isn't it just letting Jingshu girl play a song? Get lost. Who the hell do you think you are? Are you worthy of letting Jingshu girl play a song? Men, drag Lao Tzu out and break his legs. Send him back to his residence and tell his father that I, Chen Tiniu, and young Master Li said to ask his father if he's worthy. Lao Tzu said before that this Jingshu girl is my brother's wife. I'm sure you all know about Jingshu girl's vow? Damn it, Lao Tzu hasn't come for a few days. Who dares to break Lao Tzu's rules? Procuress, you bastard. Get your ass over here. Cheng Chimo exploded in anger. Even Li Chengqian's face was ashen. Although Zhang Feng didn't agree to this Jingshu girl, even Imperial Father had tacitly agreed. She was Zhang Feng's brother's woman, yet he didn't dare to have any ideas. Who the hell dared to be so bold? Moreover, Imperial Father had once mentioned this matter at retired Emperor's birthday. Among the hundreds of officials, who didn't know? Who the hell was this? Who dared to touch his brother's woman? The procuress and the pimp's legs had already turned to jelly. They stumbled and crawled to Li Chengqian, crying to the heavens. That person was also dumbfounded. He was about to question something, but the person beside him whispered something in his ear. He suddenly looked at Li Chengqian with a changed expression. Grand. Young Master Li. This lowly one is drunk. I beg young Master Li to let this lowly one off. Men break his third leg. Send it to his father. Li Chengqian didn't say anything. He directly threw a white jade token to the procuress, then turned and walked into the spring fragrance pavilion. How could the procuress not know what to do when she saw the jade token? At this time, after the person was dragged away by Swallow Descent Tower's hired thugs, he recovered a bit. But at this time, a cold voice came from the attic. May I ask this young master, was that thing at the door made by Prince Zhang? Why didn't Prince Zhang come? Anger, a kind of leisurely anger, instantly filled everyone's hearts. The 18 beats were over very quickly. But very quickly, more than 2 hours had passed. 2 hours later, the gouging music was stopped, and there was no more sound coming from the attic. Cheng Chumo couldn't sit still anymore. Since Miss Jingshu is performing, then let me show you Brother Zhang's tricycle. While talking, Cheng Chumo found a few strong and agile guys among the stubborn people and went downstairs. Everyone couldn't sit still anymore. They wanted to see what was so magical about this magical thing. Cheng Chumo sat on the tricycle and waved his hand coquettishly. Everyone, I can tell you about this thing. Although my brother didn't tell me about the magic of this thing, I can tell you that this thing is much more interesting than riding a horse or sitting in a sedan. Every pedal has a pattern. If you master it well, although it's not as fast as a horse, once you think about it, if you use it as a carriage or a war chariot, how spectacular would it be on the battlefield? It's faster than all the wooden carriages we use now. While talking, Cheng Chumo didn't believe it himself. This thing was too strenuous. But considering that he was showing Jingshu the good thing of Zhang Feng's brother, how could he not do his best? One had to know that at this time, if he performed well here, once Jingshu married into the family, wouldn't Zhang Feng be obedient as long as she blew a gentle breeze? What kind of man was he to be so stingy when learning something from him? Jingshu watched very carefully. However, watching Cheng Chumo and the other two playing on the tricycle in the attic, she even keenly saw that a few things fell off the tricycle, and the wheel seemed to be a little deformed after bumping in a pothole. This thing, although looked so magical, but could it be that this was still an unfinished item? Otherwise, with Prince Zhang's character, why didn't he tell them? Did they secretly take it out? Thinking of this, Jingshu instantly lost interest. Thank you for your demonstration, Child Chen. I hope Child Chen can quickly return this thing to Prince Zhang. I'm tired today. Jingshu will leave first. While speaking, Jingshu disappeared from the attic window. And those ministers' sons were even more confused. Prince Zhang? Who was that Prince Zhang? Who exactly was the person who could make Jingshu protect him like this? At noon, although they were busy catching locusts and making money, they clearly saw the 3 stubborn guys take this thing out of Zhang Feng's tavern. At first, they thought that Zhang Feng had agreed to it. But now it seemed that there was another reason. Fengzi, just tell us what's wrong. If these bastards really dared to rob you, Lao Tzu would bite off a piece of meat from them and avenge you even if it costs him his life. When Zhang Feng heard that, he hurriedly waved his hand at the 2 men who were so anxious that their eyes turned red. Forget it, forget it. I was drunk and fell into their trap. Next time, I'll get back at them personally. When the 2 of them heard that, they did not say anything else. How could the 2 of them not understand that this guy was angry out of humiliation because he could not outdrink them? All right. If you're a coward, don't compete with others in drinking. I told you to get married earlier and marry Miss Zhang. Wouldn't that be great? If you do it yourself, hurry up and find someone to watch over you. You're going to lose your life. The 2 of them shook their heads and sighed. They did not stay and left. Zhang Feng smacked his lips. What else could he say? Wasn't he asking for it? Ever since she was born, She had to let her father dip a mouthful of wine in her mouth before she would cry. She was a person who could drink wine the moment she was born. Why would you drink with her? Great, isn't it? Zhang Feng kicked the tricycle angrily. No way. He would look for old Chen tomorrow and make him pay. He could not let him off so easily. Damn it. When he saw the tricycle, Zhang Feng felt a toothache. He decided not to look at it. He covered his head and fell asleep. While Zhang Feng was sleeping in the palace, Li Shimin was also listening to the reports of his subordinates with great interest. From time to time, he would burst into hearty laughter. Great! Ha ha ha, I really want to see what that tricycle looks like now. If this thing is really as Cheng Chumo said, then I'm also looking forward to the future of the Tang dynasty. That's right. Ask the Crown Prince to come here. I want to ask him personally. By the way, is he back yet? Chapter 394. Your Majesty, there hasn't been any news from the Eastern Palace, so we don't know if the Crown Prince has returned. However, Prime Minister Wei and Lord Zhang's son are waiting outside the hall. Little Gizi hurried to the door and asked. Li Shimin waved his hand. Summon them. Summon Wei Zhang, Zhang's son Wuji, and Feng Xianling for an audience. Little Gizi shouted at the top of his lungs. The three people who had been waiting outside the hall entered the imperial study unhurriedly. This old subject pays respects to your majesty. My beloved subjects, sit. We just heard an interesting news. Brother Zhang Feng came up with another good toy. Oh! May I ask your majesty, what good thing is it? Although everyone knew what had happened, they didn't dare to say that they knew. They pretended to be confused and surprised. When Li Shimin saw this, he clasped his hands behind his back and paced back and forth in the imperial study. I heard that the Crown Prince, Chong and that brat Chumo had obtained something called a tricycle from Brother Zhang Feng and were wandering around Chang'an. I also heard that they had caused some trouble at Yen Lai restaurant. Tricycle. What is this thing? Why haven't we heard of it before? Brother Zhang Feng is hiding it from us. Isn't that so? The last time I went to his place, if it wasn't for my quick reflexes to ask for a pot from him, I reckon that the pot would still be hidden by him. It would have been better if Zhang's son Wuji hadn't said anything, but his words instantly caused the others to roll their eyes. This guy had stolen it from Zhang Feng and his brother, and now he was still showing off? If not for Brother Zhang Feng being too embarrassed to say anything, do you think you're the only one who can do it? You're the one with the thickest skin here. Enough. Let's not talk about that matter anymore. We get angry every time we see that pot of yours. Let's talk about the tricycle. What do you think of it? Your Majesty, this old subject has learned about this matter from Chong and I've also learned a little from the people of Swallow Descent Pavilion. Although this carriage is good, it can't be used. This old subject has estimated that the cost of this carriage is around 1,000 copper coins. To tell the truth, it's not as good as the wooden carriage. Li Shimin frowned when he heard this. Feng Xianling also stroked his beard and said, Your Majesty, this subject just went to the treasury and took a look. Although that thing looks awesome, this subject always feels that it's not as fast as a horse, and it's not as reliable as a carriage. If the front wheel is removed and the carriage is put on, then it's bound to be like what Cheng Chumo said. It can be even lighter and faster than the bronze chariot. Hearing this, Li Shimin's eyes lit up. Wei Jing nodded. That's right, that thing has a drawback. The wheels are too small. Chapter 395. In Chang'an City. All the people were hunting for locusts like crazy. The insecticide on a beacon tower was still burning in the distance. From Chang'an City to Hadong Road, Hunan Road, Jianan Road, Shannon Road, Jiangnan Road, and Longyu Road, all the beacon towers were lit. There were even people who used the fire belt that Zhang Feng had mentioned in a suitable area. They used the method of burning. In addition to the supplementary herbs that were burned in the fire, this instantly reduced the threat of the locusts. But this was just a facade. The locusts that blotted out the sky and covered the earth continued to pour in from the direction of Longyu and Tuyuhun. Li Shimin waved his hand again. He mobilized all the pharmacies and collected all the herbs that could be used to weaken the locusts. But now, The locusts' momentum was gone. Tuyuhun and Tubo didn't believe Li Shimin at first. But when they saw the situation, they took the prescription that Zhang Sun Wuji gave them and learned from the Tang dynasty. They implemented it bit by bit. Although people were a little dizzy and some even had diarrhea, at least the locusts were eliminated. This was undoubtedly a good news for them. At this time, the people of Tubo and Tuyuhun didn't thank their king. Instead, they thanked the emperor of the Tang dynasty. If it weren't for him, they would have been dead by now. After 3 days, the locusts were finally stopped at the root. But looking at the barren land, everyone was dumbfounded. How could they plant crops like this? All the crops in the fields this year were fed to those damn locusts. How could they survive? At this time, Li Shimin and his people had arrived near the Shirley Slope outside Chang'an City. Li Shimin and his people were about 300, but each of them pretended to be people catching locusts. At this time, the trees on the Shirley Slope were still there, but there were no leaves. On the trees and on the ground, there were dense locusts that were dizzy from the insecticide. Looking at this barren land that stretched as far as the eye could see, Li Shimin asked in astonishment, "Little Geezy, this is Shirley Slope? I remember that this place used to be lush with vegetation, and it was all jungles. But why are the trees all bare? Where is the grass?" "Your Majesty, it's all eaten by locusts. It's all gone." Little Geezy's face was full of grief. Li Shimin felt dizzy. If Wei Shuyu hadn't been smart and supported Li Shimin might have already sat on the ground. How is this possible? Li Shimin was shocked. Was this the power of locusts? If it weren't for Zhang Feng and his brother's formula, they wouldn't have been able to control most of the locusts in such a short time. Even if they wanted to achieve the current results, it would probably take more than a month. Thinking that next year, which was the 3rd year of Zhenguan, there would be a more serious locust plague than this one, Li Shimin couldn't help but feel scared. If this was true, then all the herbs this year had been used up. What about next year? What about next year? He didn't think that if they did this year, all the locusts would have been killed before the breeding season. Plus, all the chickens and ducks would have gone to war. Then, where would there be locusts next year? Plus, there would be fire. And if Tubo and Tuyuhun used the herbs that could directly kill locusts, then where would there be locusts next year? Even if there were, it would only be a few, far from the scale of this year. Li Shimin didn't think of all this at this time. He was just shocked by everything in front of him. Ga. At this time, a large flock of ducks and chicks, with no end in sight, were being herded by hundreds of people from afar. At this time, the ducks' bellies were full. Under the herders herding, they circled a large area by the Wei River for the ducks to rest temporarily. It seemed that tomorrow, the 10-mile slope would be their next battlefield. It wasn't until he saw the ducks and chicks that Li Shimin's mood improved slightly. After all, although everything was bare now, as long as there were no more locusts, the 10-mile slope would recover in less than a month. It was only a matter of time. If they could control the locust plague this year, what about next year? Since Zhang Feng could think of a solution this time, then what about next year? Thinking of this, Li Shimin felt a little tired and started patrolling again. Lao Li? You also brought your servants to make a fortune. At this time, a person suddenly appeared from behind the crowd and waved his hands at Li Shimin. At this time, he was already held down by the Jinwu guards in makeup. When Li Shimin heard the voice, how could he not know who it was? He hurriedly turned around and ordered the crowd to retreat. What are you doing? Let go of Brother Zhang Feng. Brother, why are you here? Li Shimin hurried over and asked. Zhang Feng pointed at the basket behind him. I have nothing to do, right? I came here to see if I could get some game, but as you can see, there are only locusts and grasshoppers here. Didn't you see that flock of ducks? I was thinking of buying a few to make soy sauce duck. Chapter 396. Zhang Feng was very depressed. He couldn't stay in the tavern any longer. He didn't know where old Madame Wang was cramping up. She came to him every 2 or 3 days and asked for his birth characters. She even said that next month would be an auspicious day. However, Zhang Feng rejected her. Today, he encountered such a thing again. How could Zhang Feng not be driven crazy? He decided to go all the way.
He closed the door and left. That way, he would have some peace and quiet. The two of them sat in Li Shimon's sedan and slowly returned to the tavern. As usual, Zhang Feng made a bowl of century egg porridge for Li Shimon. This time, Li Shimon was stunned. Looking at the century egg in the bowl, he asked curiously, "Brother Zhang Feng, this is century egg?" "Old Madame Wang always comes to me. Last month, she gave me a basket of duck eggs. I can't finish them all by myself, so I made them into century eggs for her." "What's a century egg?" "Also, duck eggs. Aren't they all very expensive now?" Li Shimon was in a bad mood. Looking at the black and translucent century egg, he asked. Ordinary people would definitely not be willing to eat this egg. Moreover, as far as he knew, a duck egg or an egg could be sold for at least 10 copper coins. However, food was only 6 copper coins now. Moreover, it was in such a serious situation. Sigh. Zhang Feng sighed heavily. "Brother, there's something you don't know. Old Madame Wang would definitely not be willing to take out these eggs, let alone 30 of them. My boyfriend, who hasn't seen her for the new year, secretly gave them to her and asked her to bring them." Zhang Feng was a little speechless. Li Shimon suddenly understood. Everything made sense now. However, there was another problem. That was the egg. What was it? Although he had never doubted Zhang Feng's culinary skills, looking at the shiny black thing in the spoon, he really lost his appetite. However, under Zhang Feng's instigation, he took out a whole century egg from the kitchen and ate it with relish in front of Li Shimon. He even drank a mouthful of wine. This time, Li Shimon's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He subconsciously took a bite of the century egg in his spoon, but in the next moment, he couldn't help but frown deeply. This egg didn't have any strange taste, and it was very chewy. This egg. Don't ask, I won't tell you even if you ask." Zhang Feng directly interrupted Li Shimon. "This is a treasure. This is something I'm preparing to present to the emperor when I enter the imperial court. Since you're here today, I'll let you have some. Let's make it clear first. You mustn't tell anyone about this, especially Chen Tiniu, Chong Buggy, Li Gan, and the others." Li Shimon pursed his lips. He looked at Zhang Feng with a look of disdain. However, Zhang Feng didn't even bother to look at him. After a while, when Li Shimon carefully tasted a big bowl of bone-strengthening powder porridge, Zhang Feng mysteriously rubbed the door with his mouth and said, "Lao Li, see, I was right." "What was right?" Li Shimon was dumbfounded. "What else?" "This locust. See what I told you? I told you to hurry up, but you didn't listen. Now, everything I guessed, the emperor also guessed. See if I guessed correctly, brother?" What could Li Shimon say? He gave him a thumbs up. "You're awesome." Sigh. "It's a pity that this deal is over. I originally wanted to make a lot of money with you, and even let you get in touch with some high-ranking officials. Now, it seems that everything has been guessed correctly by the wise emperor. By the way, how's the bone-strengthening powder factory?" "Well, we'll do it again." Li Shimon touched his nose and pretended to be drinking. What could he say? He was sitting next to him now. He was indeed a little unscrupulous in this matter. But there was no other way, right? Zhang Feng and his brother hadn't been confirmed yet, and he couldn't directly say when they would go to the imperial court. Li Shimon couldn't help but ask, "Brother Zhang Feng, I heard Lord Zhang's son, the minister of the Ministry of Justice, say that there's a vacancy in the Ministry of Justice." "You." "Old son told me about this before, but that bastard is unscrupulous. You should have said it when we were talking about it. He even took Lao Tzu's pot away." Zhang Feng was speechless. "If I don't go to the Ministry of Justice, not only will I offend people, but I'll also be remembered. Let's not talk about this now. By the way, Lao Li, looking at you today, did something happen?" Zhang Feng wanted to ask Li Shimon directly for the loss of the tricycle, but when he thought of Li Shimon's appearance, he couldn't bear to say it now. It would have been better if Zhang Feng didn't say it, but once he said it, Li Shimon's face immediately turned red. "Brother, you don't know. As your brother, I'm suffering." When Zhang Feng heard this, he couldn't help but roll his eyes. "What kind of trouble did you encounter this time? I remember that you should have made a fortune by now, right? What else is there to worry about? What can't be solved with 100 caddies of bone-strengthening powder?"
Don't tell me that the bone-strengthening powder in the palace wasn't made by you. Do you know that the price of that stuff is now 100 copper coins per caddy? I'll only ask for this amount of money when the time comes. As he spoke, Zhang Feng stretched out his palm. Li Shimen's eyes widened when he saw this. Chapter 397. I say, brother, you want 50% of it? Yes. Zhang Feng pursed his lips. Although we haven't gotten married yet, as an official, we have to do this, don't we? We have to prepare for it. We have to get a house, right? It's best if it's a courtyard. Also, we have to prepare a family property for our future son, right? How can this not cost money? What if the emperor likes our food after we enter the court? Don't you think we have to spend money? So, we have to save some money now. Moreover, the profit from the bone-strengthening powder is a business without capital. Believe it or not, even the emperor has a stake in it. Otherwise, how can it be sold for 100 copper coins per caddy? Wouldn't it be a mess? Li Shimen's mouth twitched. Money was not a problem. No matter how much he wanted, he had to give it to him. Putting aside the fact that the bone-strengthening powder was invented by Zhang Feng, just the salt-making technique, the trade of Zhenla, and the water transportation were all profitable businesses. It was not that Li Shimen did not want to give him money. He had to give it to Zhang Feng even if he wanted a city. However, this was a matter for the future. If he gave it now, it would only harm Zhang Feng. Therefore, he had to wait for Zhang Feng to grow up. At that time, even if he was given a prince or a state capital, it would not be a problem. Okay, I'll give you 50% then. But let's say this first. You know how profitable it is. Not only the emperor has a stake in it, you also know that almost all the officials have a stake in it. So when the time comes, we'll talk about this later. The business of the bone-strengthening powder has to be done quickly. Now that the locusts are hoarding a lot, it's good to hoard more. What's the good? Now when I hear the word locusts, my head hurts. What's wrong with you? Zhang Feng could not help but be curious. He's not making a lot of money. Do you want to announce all of this? That's not it. It would be great if that's the case. Li Shimen shook his head speechlessly. Isn't it because those damned locusts have gnawed away the grass? Now we can only look at the locusts and bone-strengthening powder piled up like a mountain. We can't transport them out. Your cattle and sheep have been requisitioned. Zhang Feng peeled another century egg. While eating, he glared at Li Shimen. Now, let alone cows and sheep, even the warhorses in the barracks are starving. Think about it. How can my mules and horses have the strength to pull goods? I'm starving to death. Zhang Feng understood. No wonder Lao Li's legs went soft when he saw the Baron land outside Chang'an City. It turned out that this was the reason. Lao Li. That's all you want? Zhang Feng was in disbelief. Then, do you think there's anything else that can make me worried? Li Shimen seriously doubted Zhang Feng's intentions. This guy might be despising him now. But when he heard Zhang Feng mention this trivial matter, Li Shimen's heart settled down. Once this guy said that, then damn it, there must be a way to solve this problem. But the grass was gone. Unless you can make the heavens rain grass, otherwise, all the livestock will die in less than 3 days. Not to mention the livestock transported from Tubo and other places. Tubo was really cunning. At first, he was hesitant. But when he saw that the locusts were stopped by the Tang dynasty, he couldn't wait to treat the people as livestock and throw them to the Tang dynasty. This idea was really smart. Once the Tang dynasty starved these livestock to death, what was the problem? At that time, they could ask for as much as they wanted. If the Tang dynasty didn't give them anything, they would have to give back everything they took before. This was what Li Shimen was really worried about. Lao Li, you're still too. This is not a problem. Since we're partners now, and these cows and horses are useless, it will affect the income of our bone-strengthening powder, right? Okay, I'll give you an idea. I guarantee that your cows and horses will be fatter and stronger than the pigs that eat locusts outside. Li Shimen really wanted to despise Zhang Feng, but Zhang Feng's next words instantly made Li Shimen's eyes pop out. Lao Li, do you still remember the bone-strengthening powder factory I mentioned before? You can be a little more flexible. Why can't the cows, sheep, and horses eat something that can be eaten by people? Li Shimin was stunned. Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin's shoulder, and then said earnestly, "Actually, this is not a problem. Think about it. Our current output of bone-strengthening powder and the speed of collecting locusts are seriously unbalanced. I guess many of the locusts in your warehouse are spoiled, right? Think about it, the food the humans eat has to be washed and the internal organs removed, but what about the food that cows and sheep eat? These locusts eat grass. Do you think the cows and sheep will eat them if we grind them into powder, process them a little and mix them with the hay to make fodder?" "That's right," Zhang Lixing said. "That's right. You have to learn to be flexible. Once you're flexible, this will become a profitable business, won't it?" While speaking, Zhang Feng glanced at Li Shimin and said, "Sometimes I really wonder if you're a businessman or not. You can't even think of such a trivial thing?" Chapter 398. Li Shimin was shocked. He automatically filtered out Zhang Feng's sarcastic words. He had eaten locusts countless times, and they had even become a must-have dish before going to bed every night. It was the same with the bone-strengthening powder. The locusts tasted fine, but the bone-strengthening powder was different. It had the faint fragrance of grass. Now that he thought about it, if it could be eaten by humans, what about horses? If this thing was really useful, wouldn't all the difficulties of the Tang dynasty be solved? Moreover, if this thing could be eaten by humans, what about animals? Although it didn't sound good, it made sense. Every day, he received news from the treasury and Du Ruhui that tens of thousands of locusts would spoil every day. It was not man-made, and the weather was too hot. If there were too many locusts, however, if he directly collected them, or if he didn't deal with the locusts that were about to spoil, he would directly take them out to roast and grind them into powder. The effect would be much higher. Li Shimin took a deep breath and cupped his fists. "Brother, you are really the god of wealth. Sometimes, I really have an illusion that you are the god of wealth in the sky. How is it that everything, even a rock or a pile of shit, can become a treasure in your hands?" Zhang Feng's face darkened. "Why do I feel that you are scolding me?" Li Shimin laughed heartily. No, I'm just praising you from the bottom of my heart. Come on." Zhang Feng waved his hand and didn't care about these details. "Lao Li, do you want to do this business or not? The profit is definitely not as good as the bone-strengthening powder. If you don't want to do it, I will ask the neighbors to do it. By the way, the people of Hui Tong Workshop can also make a little profit." "Of course. Who says I don't want to do it?" When Li Shimin heard that someone wanted to steal his business, he immediately grabbed Zhang Feng's hand and didn't let go. Zhang Feng was a little speechless. All right. Come here. As you can see, the terrain of Shirley Slope is very good. Do you want to build a fodder factory there? In that case. Wait, what's a feed factory?" Li Shimin hurriedly interrupted Zhang Feng and said helplessly, "Can you tell me in detail? Every time, you just skimmed over the important parts. I still have to think about it for half a day when I go back. I can't figure it out even with a large group of people around me for an entire night. I still have to come to you." Hearing Li Shimin's words, Zhang Feng glared at Li Shimin and said, "Who was it that said I was long-winded?" "That's enough, brother. Lao Li was wrong, okay? You really have to explain this matter clearly. What is this animal feed factory? Is it that fodder farm?" Li Shimin knew that he couldn't win against Zhang Feng, so he hurriedly changed the topic. Zhang Feng thought for a moment and said, "That's about it." If all the cars of the Tang dynasty were made by your family, what kind of spectacular scene would it be? You will know whether the car is good or not by looking at the difference between iron and wood. Think about it carefully. I'm sleepy. Don't say that, brother. The more Zhang Feng said, the more anxious Li Shimin became. Once this thing was implemented, he had seen the magnificent iron ship. Would this iron chariot be more difficult to make than an iron ship? No. If Li Shimin was really a businessman, this thing would definitely not be attractive. He would at least be interested. But he was the emperor. When Zhang Feng said that, he instantly thought of two things that could be used. The first was the military, and the other was the business operation. Among these two, Li Shimin paid the most attention to the military. After all, only a strong military could ensure that he could have everything else. Otherwise, if he had everything but the military was not strengthened, then once it was coveted, it would only be a wedding dress for others. Would he, Li Shimin, do such a thing? It was impossible. Li Shimin would never do such a thing, let alone let go of a chance to strengthen the military. After all, after experiencing the Wei River Alliance, Li Shimin paid more attention to the military facilities. He never wanted to experience the feeling of being blocked at the door again. Involuntarily, Li Shimin excitedly pulled Zhang Feng's hand and said, "Brother Zhang Feng, sometimes, I always wonder if you are the god of wealth, but sometimes, I feel like you are the Ziwei star official in the sky. But now, I really understand that you are the reincarnation of Lu Ban." Zhang Feng shook off Li Shimin's hand with a look of disgust. No, I am me. The Ziwei star official, the god of wealth, and Lu Ban have nothing to do with me. He did not dare to wear this high hat casually. Once he wore it, in the Tang dynasty, where superstition was the strongest, he might really be praised to death. He would not dare to do such a foolish thing even if he was beaten to death. Chapter 401. Zhang Feng had achieved his goal. Who knew how Lao Li would beat up his son when he returned? He had finally gotten his revenge. Most importantly, Zhang Feng was lazy. Lao Li already knew about this. Now that he could no longer hide it, he might as well be a hands-off boss. He believed that Lao Li would not cheat him of the benefits involved. After all, this tricycle was just the beginning. The real giants were yet to come. He knew how to build those things. After all, he had chosen the machinery manufacturing and maintenance specialization. All of this had to wait until that D*MN system was activated and he entered the imperial court. It was still too early to do anything now. All right, Lao Li, look at how excited you are. If you are really interested, then go back and discuss how to deal with those old fogies from the Ministry of Works. After you get the approval, we can talk about this. But let me say this first. I will only provide the blueprint and teach you how to build it. As for the rest, I don't care. As for the benefits, half? No, I only want 30%. Zhang Feng extended 3 fingers and shook them. This thing had to go through the Ministry of Works, Ministry of Appointments, and Ministry of Justice. It would be good enough if Lao Li could get 60%. Hence, he did not ask for too much. After all, if he could build a good relationship with the government, it would be very helpful for him when he entered the imperial court. Although he would not show his face, if he could support Lao Li, that would be good too. The most important thing was that he didn't want to be famous now. After all, in the face of huge benefits, not to mention one person, in the eyes of those officials, even 100 or 1,000 people could disappear quietly. Therefore, for the sake of his little life, Zhang Feng still chose to be behind the scenes. Was it not better to just lie down and earn money? Li Shimin was also a little surprised. But after thinking about it, he understood. This was still not half of the benefits? But this amount of money was really nothing to Li Shimin. Brother Zhang Feng. Then this matter is settled? Settled. Li Shimin's mood was greatly relieved. However, when he thought about how Li Chengqian and the other two almost ruined his plan, he couldn't help but feel angry. He also felt that he had let Zhang Feng down. Only then did he return to the tavern and bring out 2 jars of wine. Handing one to Zhang Feng, Li Shimin raised the wine jar and said, "Brother Zhang Feng, regarding the matter of the tricycle, I will definitely make those 3 guys pay the price when we return. I will borrow your wine to apologize to you." Without waiting for Zhang Feng to speak, he grabbed the jar and gulped it down. Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. So this son of mine got me drunk, and now you, the Lao Tzu, are trying to get me drunk? He was drunk yesterday and his stomach was still churning. How could he dare to drink now? Li Shimin was speechless. Okay, I won't drink the wine. How is the matter of the academy? Li Shimin put down the wine jar reluctantly and burped. He smacked his lips and said, We are still waiting for the Imperial College's approval, but it will be soon. By the way, I have seen the desk you ordered. It is indeed a little different from the current one. It's settled. As for the matter of the students, let's get 30 people to test the water first. If it is too troublesome, forget it. Just your precious son and a few people almost took my life. If there are more people and they are all that kind of character, won't I be exhausted to death? Then. Okay. By the way, I heard the 18 beats of the hujia last night. It is indeed extraordinary. When are you going to marry 2 people? Do you want me to prepare a house for you? I guarantee that it will be more luxurious than the house of Duke. It was fine if he didn't say it. Now that Li Shimin said it, Zhang Feng's head started to hurt. One of them was still muddle-headed, but these two. There was no need to talk about Jing Shu. To be able to survive in Swallow Descent Hall, she definitely had some capabilities. Even though he hadn't met the young mistress of the Zhang clan before, he could tell that she wasn't a simple person from the letter she had written. If one of them were to enter the Zhang clan, he wouldn't be able to live a good life, let alone 2 of them. He did not want to die young. Okay, this matter is not urgent. Okay, I am sleepy. Remember to close the door for me if you have nothing to do. I am still drunk from yesterday. As he spoke, Zhang Feng yawned and lay on the recliner, pretending to sleep. How could Li Shimin not know what Zhang Feng meant? He smiled slightly and clasped his fists. In that case, I will leave first. If you don't want to, do you want me to tell you? After all, I, Lao Li, still have some reputation in Chang'an City. Reputation? If you have reputation, why haven't I heard of your name in Chang'an City? Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. Okay, you don't have to worry about this matter. Otherwise, you will make a mess for me again. Okay, I will leave first. Li Shimin clasped his fists and left. After all, there were 2 most important things to do now. The first was the matter of the grass field. As for the second, it was to go back and beat someone up. As soon as he left the tavern, Li Shimin's face instantly darkened. The aura on his body suddenly became dignified. Wei Shuyu, who had been guarding beside him, was shocked when she saw this. She hurried forward. Little Gizi and the others also gathered around Li Shimin at this moment. Have the Crown Prince and the others returned? Yes. Master Li, they have returned. Okay, let the 3 of them kneel at the door of the Imperial study and wait for me to return. Wei Shuyu was dumbfounded when she heard that. What was going on? Why were all the fathers in the world the same? Why did they beat their sons when they were angry? But he did not dare to ask. He hurriedly accepted the order and left in a hurry. Yes. I will go now.